Hello, everybody. My name is Crimson. My Twitch channel is CrimsonCasts, but I am Crimson, and I am here today to run the Diablo 4 base campaign for all of you on Sorcerer. I am joined by my lovely co-commentator, who can introduce himself.
Hello everyone, I'm Vitruth. I'm here to support Crimson.
Appreciate you hanging out with me today, Vitruth. As many of you know, just to give you a bit of preface for the run today, all items in Diablo 4 and in Diablo franchise in general are procedurally generated. So this is what we're looking for. We need a pair of yellow boots. We need them to show up early. Early is any time before about the 40-minute mark, and acceptable is any time before about the 1 hour mark. If that doesn't happen, we will soldier along, and I will come in underestimate anyways. I have promised production staff that is the case. But we are looking for yellow boots. If you are in the crowd, either on Twitch or in person, I encourage you to shout boot when you see it. If you want to spam any footwear emojis or reacts that you have on Twitch, I encourage you to do that. Just sort of guide RNGesus toward the footwear options. If you aren't here at person today at Twitch, just know that all of your favorite speedrunners have drawn... Most of these are intended to be shoes. We have Sonic's shoe, we have a couple socks and sneakers and things. So everyone else has done this as well. You guys are encouraged to do this on Twitch chat. I'm going to give you a bit of a lore background just like quickly for 90 seconds before we get started so you can understand what's happening a little bit. And then I'll be explaining a bunch of that during the run along with, of course, game mechanics and speedrun strats. So Diablo 4 takes place, it's a dark fantasy RPG game. It has a very deep and very messy legendarium. But just so you know, the inciting incident in the cutscenes that we are skipping is that the literal mother of humanity and creator of the world that we're in is is Lilith. She has been summoned back into the world. She is an important archdemon. She is the daughter of one of the three prime evils. And she rebelled against Hell alongside Inarius, an angel who rebelled against Heaven. And the two of them stole the World Stone and created a sanctuary from the eternal conflict. And Sanctuary is the world, specifically the planet that we're on. And I'm going to go ahead and get into this. I love that the devs bothered to clarify it is a spherical celestial body. I recently found that out, that it is unambiguously a spherical celestial body. I am going to, of course, choose my eyebrows and haircut carefully. They're more aerodynamic, and these are totally important for speedruns. I definitely am a little bit superstitious about this. If I don't run with these exact tattoos, I, for some reason, will not get a good time. This character...
You gotta look good to go fast.
Of course, of course. Oh, we need to change my face geometry. 1 second here. Rich character creation options, of course. 4 faces available. And this character, like all of my speedrun characters, is named after my real-life friend, Ren. So... I will explain a bit of the speedrun strategy and rules a little bit here at the start. Just so you guys know, there are some artificially self-enforced restrictions that exist in this speedrun category. Oh wait, I should call time before I move. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Thank you, everybody.
Already had a false start.
We already had a false start. Definitely not disqualifying. Definitely Vitruth is not a speedrun mod who will ding me for that. 100% not a problem. I'm so used to calling it for myself. So there are a couple of restrictions that we enforce on ourselves in this. Most of them are intended to imitate what the truly new player experience would be in the game. As we run through, if you downloaded the game today, which I encourage you to do, I like the game, D4 good. You would have some limitations in using in-game crafting systems and item upgrading systems and so on and so forth. And as a consequence, you would not be able to upgrade your items until level 15. You would not be able to imprint legendary aspects on your items until level 25. Since I do not have a brand new account, those systems are already unlocked for this character, but we are going to behave as though they are not. This is Vani. She's got social anxiety. We'll give her a second. This is definitely not a bug. Just give her a moment. All right, hi, nice to talk to you, Vani. And she's going to tell us that the ruins north of town here are infested with demons and we have to go clear them out. We are in adventure.
It's a dramatic pause, really.
It definitely didn't just start with Season 6 for no explicable reason. The devs totally intended that exact behavior. Throughout the game, you're going to see me turning into a lightning bolt and zipping across the room, and in many cases, through walls many times. This spell on the left side of my spell bar called Teleport is the main reason that I chose to run Sorcerer for you guys today, because there are a bunch of big, fancy, flashy tricks that we will be getting away with. The other thing that you'll notice is that every time that I press the spell that's third on my spell slot, this one, Hydra, I am going to immediately jump forward, and that's because I'm using my evade action to animation cancel the very, very long cast animation on that spell for you guys. Saves about 1/3 of a second each time that I do that, so over the course of a couple hundred casts in the run, we save a few minutes from that alone. Oop. And we're going to continue running here. We're definitely not going to get annoyingly blocked in a doorway, and we're going to continue on down here to fight the tutorial area boss, Xval. Now, I have to say, Vitruth, you're a Diablo 2 player, right? You appreciate that game?
I do appreciate Diablo 2.
What do you think of the fact that these Fallen are not running away from me when I kill their friends?
You know, I think that they have gotten more bold in their age since the events of, you know, Diablo 2, Dark Wanderer, and then following that, Diablo 3, and even Malthael. They've really grown quite bold, I think.
I think it's interesting. For those who don't know, one of the mob mechanics in earlier Diablo games is that each mob had a unique behavior, and one for that mob type was that it would they would be very fearful. They were cowards, the Fallen were, and so every time you killed one of them, all of their friends would run away from you in fear. And that mob mechanic was removed in this iteration of the game.
Like us now.
We have encountered our first bug of the run so far. These pants are giving me +0 life per 5 seconds. This is Yosef. He's an official from the nearby cathedral. He came here because they stopped paying their tithes, and he wanted to investigate why. We're going to find out why in a cutscene that I will unfortunately be skipping for you guys. It turns out that Lilith, the queen of the succubi, has shown up in town and convinced the people to murder their church official, and that's not very good. And then she ran away to the other side of the map, and Yosef very excitedly rescues us from that situation after we have our vision. Upon hearing that the demon Lilith has returned, or rather a 9-foot-tall woman with goat horns, not yet identified specifically as the mother of humanity, he tells us, go to this cabin in the woods and find the Hermit. The Hermit ends up being Lorath, a character that existed in the expansion for Diablo 3. And he's our wise old man companion, taking the place of Deckard Cain from Diablos 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to go ahead and snoop around his home. We're going to get into the habit of snooping around people's homes. In fact, it's one of the main plot mechanics is that we gather information by going into people's houses unannounced and just looking through their diaries and things. I'm not really sure why we do that so eagerly. And then Lorath is going to tell us that the angel Inarius has returned as well. So both mom and dad are back. It's still a very messy divorce. They are not happy with each other. And nominally, Lilith is evil and Inarius is good, being an angel and a demon respectively. But they are both very ego-driven with very different ulterior motives. So neither one of them is exactly going to try and help us in particular or humanity in general. They're going to try and use humanity to their very different aims.
I'm off to the job.
Lorath here, immediately upon hearing that there's a great demon back in town and that he, as a member of the Haradrim, is sworn to protect humanity, instead of going and talking to the people who are recruiting him, he's going to run as far across the continent as he possibly can to a region called the Dry Steppes. In the vision that we previously saw, Lilith had an accomplice, a tall, pale man who is not yet identified, and Lorath happens to know him and is more interested in investigating that than in helping us fight the archdemoness herself. Now I'm going to do a side quest. Blink and you'll miss it though, because I'm just going to talk to Guard Boza here. She is the world's worst boss. She, for some reason, thinks that encouraging the people who work for her would make her a bad boss in some way, and so she asks us to do it for her. The reason that we do that is because it's very quick and we have very few opportunities to get items early on in the run. All items being procedural means that we are very, 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 very dependent on RNG, and we want as many opportunities as we can to find those procedurally generated items that will help us out, notably, as I've pointed out to you guys, yellow boots, but also other things. Jewelry, gloves in particular are very important. Armor, not so much early on in the run, but later on in the run that will become more important, and we will get to that when we get it. You're currently hearing the voice of Vigo. Vigo is the captain of the local guard of a mine that we're about to go visit.
Thanks.
Guard Boza, immediately upon asking us to encourage the recruits and finding out that we did, tells us, I hope they don't get used to it. So she's a toxic boss. She won't encourage them herself. And then when we do it, she says, well, I hope those people don't get used to having a positive work environment. Right now, as I'm riding along on my horse, those of you who are in person will know that pace is taking place very, very close to a horse racing track. This morning I was out anxiously walking off my nerves before the run, and I was looking at the jockeys, and I was wondering if I could pick up any tips. Diablo 4's horse riding mechanics are notoriously disliked, I will put it mildly. The horse has a way of getting stuck on things. It turns out that the horse having an extremely poor turning rate is a very bad design decision from the point of view of game fluidity. So if you see me losing time of the horse just randomly dropping into something, it is not my fault, I promise. It's definitely just the horse having a mind of its own. I'm great. It's the horse. In any case, we're about to enter into the mine here where we'll meet our second major companion character, a teenage girl named Nayrel of ambiguous age. She's sort of a scholar adventurer type, and her curiosity gets her into a number of situations that she shouldn't be in. So far, we're having decent item RNG, not great item RNG, and we will figure out more of that as we continue. Vigo here is going to tell us that the hoist is stuck, and then I'm going to perform the first real speedrun trick of the run, which is that along the arch here, there are going to be some waves of ghouls that spawn, and if I can kill the first wave before the second wave spawns, the second wave won't spawn. So I pre-aim some of those frozen orbs and hydras, and then I run away, and that saves about 8 seconds.
Gave it to me when I let her and her friend pass through.
So far, no boots. We're going to hope that we get into the boots here as quickly as we possibly can. Now we're going to enter into the unstable mines, which is really, the game labels it as being a cascade of multiple dungeons, but really it's one. And it's a procedurally generated map, but it has a fixed start and end point. So it has a definite length and a definite direction, but I do need to sight read the tile set that occurs here. It's not too hard. This is one of the easiest dungeons to sight read in the entire run. And as I'm running along the way, I am going to be looking out for any yellow item. Yellow is a rarity tier. White is common, blue is magic, yellow is rare, orange is legendary, and so on. Anything yellow or better is like phenomenal this early in the run.
You will start to notice more and more yellows and legendaries drop as you get higher in level.
Over here.
Very definitely so. That's a good point to point out here. As we get deeper into the run, in particular at levels that end in 2, 5, and 8, item quality will jump pretty abruptly. It's supposed to scale linearly with character level, but as a consequence of the item quality breakpoints, there are some item powers where level 350 items are dramatically stronger than level 349 items, and things like that, which ends up having this effect where it character levels ending in 2, 5, and 8, I am much happier than I am at other levels. So those 12s, those 15s, those 18s are very important. In the meantime, I'm just going to clear some ghouls here, and we're going to continue descending deeper into the mine. All that we know so far is that a horned woman has appeared, and she took Nayrel's mother deeper into this mine. We don't know exactly why just yet, because so far it looks like a pretty typical mine. So far, we're having decent item RG for weapons. I'm very happy with my weapon, though, Blizzard. Please give me a pair of boots. I'm on stage in front of people.
I'm sure she has good reason.
Strider shoes, boots. Boots are first. 2 pairs of boots. We have a pair of dreads as well. Oh my gosh. They're not yellow, though, which we wouldn't expect this early, but still, boots. What we're hoping for is that all items have random modifiers on them. Blue items have 1 modifier. Yellow items, in a manner of counting, have 3. They have an implicit affix and 2 base affixes. And so what we're hoping for here, in addition to me hopefully hitting my teleport clips, thank you, is that we are going to try and find boots that have bonus movement speed on them. So we're going to get
I'm not dying here.
no luck there. We'll still go ahead and upgrade there because these boots are better looking than the other ones.
Over there.
And then we're going to get handed our first yellow item of the run just here. The boots! Shout out to Kier, my childhood friend, in chat. And we're going to get handed Miner's Litany. That's an incredible copy of Miner's Litany. Holy smokes! So Miner's Litany is a ring. Rings can have various modifiers. For what I would hope are pretty obvious reasons, attack speed is very important to us. And it'll become more and more obvious why we care about attack speed later on in the run, given the combat mechanics that we're going to be using. Attack speed showing up on a ring is something like a 1 in 4 chance, and we got a particularly good roll of bonus attack speed. In the meantime, I'm going to do some inventory management here, and then we're unfortunately going to need to skip over the greatest voice acting performance of all time. There's a soldier in the throes of death on the ground right here. His name is Grendon. Not Brendan, Grendon. And Grendon is, his voice actor, man, was putting in work in this scene. Unfortunately, I do need to skip this dialogue to keep us on pace today. But just, if you play this game, start the campaign again and listen to that guy. He was putting in effort for your enjoyment. All right, and then in the meantime, we're going to see our first instance of blood petals. This symbol is sort of going to let us know that Lilith has been nearby. And those are advancing the plot. We're discovering the way in which Lilith convinced Nerel's mother to act against her own best interests and proceed into the mine with her. Then we're going to do our first speedrun skip of the game. The intended strategy is that I should run counterclockwise around the perimeter of this dungeon, but I don't think that that's very fun, so I'll just go right to the end. Now, as we continue running into the dungeon, we're going to run into a dungeon that has a grid layout, and it has the exact same shape every time, but this is hard to describe. The procedural generation system for dungeons in Diablo 4 uses a tile set. And there are different corner pieces that can exist. So as I run up here, I'm going to take a hard right turn in a moment. And there are 2 different shapes that can occur there. One is shaped like the letter C, which appears to be the one that we've gotten. In fact, it has. It's just a direct elbow here. And the other one has a much more complicated shape. I'm going to go ahead and clear these elites here for some free bonus experience. Elites are any monsters that have these little modifiers under their health bar. And we're going to continue running here. And there are other corner tiles that we can get, like the one I think we're about to get. We will need to see if I can sight read it preemptively. Nope, we got another little elbow. That's fine. The longer one is actually the faster one because there's a way to clip through it. So we're not actually having great luck in terms of our map layout, but it only loses about half a second every time that we run into one of those elbows. So it's not really that big of a deal.
You've mastered.
Then as we continue running in here, you will notice that I am leveling up very, very quickly. Our goal before we run into the first mini-boss area is that we're level 8, so I'm actually doing quite well, and I'm going to continue skipping mobs. We've had decent elite spawn RNG. Yes, so this is actually the longer of the 2 corner tiles here. You can see it has that roundabout shape, but I can actually cut off most of the tile and run ahead there. So that saves a little bit of time compared to the other possible corner piece that exists. And you can see that we're going to get another simple elbow here, and then I will continue running. Hopefully I can get another pair of boots from one of these elites in here. This is one of the things about speedrunning Diablo 4, by the way, since the maps have semi-fixed layouts, fixed layouts, procedural layouts, and so on. Not only do you need to memorize which ones of the maps are which, but you need to be able to sight read the map, and I made a mistake just a second ago there. We ended up getting a tile where it would have been good for me to have teleport available, would have saved me some time even if I had to let teleport sit on cooldown for a little bit longer. But I used teleport early, expecting that I would get a bad tile, and so I wasn't able to make use of the good one. Now I'm going to go ahead and just sit perfectly still in this room for like a while. I'm not getting experience in this room. My hiders are going to clear things for me. I'm going to knock my mic and hopefully peek it to annoy production staff. I am sorry. I'm going to do a touch of inventory management. Generally throughout the run, we will prefer having a pair of one-handed weapons to a two-handed weapon. For cast animation reasons, it's slightly faster to have a pair of one-handers if the damage is equivalent. So throughout the run, where I have the opportunity, I will be switching to a wand and an offhand, a sword and an offhand, a club and an offhand, instead of having a two-handed staff. Nerel is going to dispel the seal on that door, and then we're going to go ahead and teleport through here. Then we're going to get our first best example of follow character manipulation. You'll see Neyrelle, my little teenage companion, is going to follow along here with me, and I'm going to be able to walk a little bit faster than her. If I open up teleport at the exact last minute, I can get her to teleport with me and cut off a long, slow walking animation that happens. And that saves a significant amount of time, like 3 or 4 seconds every time I do it, and I'll be doing it dozens and dozens of times throughout the run, so it adds up to a few minutes. This fight on launch was the #1 most complained about fight because it's confusing. You'll notice that Venard, Neyrelle's mother here, has turned against us, and she's summoning many different things, harpies, balrogs, and a few minor scourge demons. It turns out that only the harpies need to be killed, but if you focus on the big and visually impressive looking balrog that spawns in the last wave, it will respawn repeatedly, and you will need to kill it over and over and over, and it will never progress the fight. So that's confusing, and I completely understand why players in launch didn't understand that. But for us, I know that I just need to kill some of the harpies. And so as a consequence, I will do that. During this fight, I am going to go ahead and take some points out of a mobility spell and put them into a combat spell during this last wave, just to save a couple of seconds as I try and clear all these hellspawn. You'll notice this Pit Lord here looks very impressive, and I can completely ignore him and run away. And I don't need to kill him. I happen to because my AoE spells have done some damage for me, but he's totally inconsequential. And that is the first mini-boss of the game.
Congrats.
I am very happy to have killed a daughter's mother in front of her. That's just, I'm so happy. Now we're going to run into an RNG-based dungeon, the equivalent for any D2 enjoyers in the chat of the Arcane Sanctuary. This is the Horodric Illusion, is what I call it colloquially. I think it's called the Darkened Holt in the game itself. In any case, go ahead and make your bets in chat. There's a 1/3 chance of the good exit and a 2/3 chance of the bad exit. I'm going to proceed directly from the bottom left of the map where I start all the way to the top right, and in around 20 seconds I'll be able to tell you whether we got the good or the bad exit. But go ahead, place your bets in chat. 1 for the good exit, 2 for the bad exit. Place your bets. As we continue through here, I'm just going to be dropping off a few more Hydras, animation canceling things, picking up XP where I can, and in the meantime we're going to hope. And I have gotten the bad exit, and I need to double back down here to the right. So people who bet on the bad exit were correct. The difference is not that big between the good and bad map layouts. It's around 18 or 20 seconds, and it was one of the first pieces of theorycraft in the theory crafting channel on the Diablo 4 speedrunning Discord, which I encourage anyone watching to join. Myself and 2 other campaign runners, Crippy and Matt B. Games, both spent substantial time trying to figure out if there was a way to sight read this map from the get-go. So far as we know, the answer is no. Now we're all going to listen to the iconic Tristram theme as we make friends with a puppy who is having a very, very bad hair day. This wolf is, I don't know if you can tell, I'll see if I can zoom in for you guys. Oh, I disabled it. But in the meantime, just know that he's not having any fun. Because you can see this white piece on the front of his face is his skull, in fact. You were saying, Vaytruth?
You might be able to still zoom in with the wheel.
I'm trying, but I actually have it hard disabled.
Smart.
I've lost some combat to that.
Don't want to misclick.
Yes, I have actually lost a run to zooming in at the wrong point. The wolf seems to be our friend so far. It's not yet identified to us who he is, but I'll go ahead and spoil for you guys. That wolf is the emissary of one of the prime evils that is one of the projections of Mephisto, the lord and font of all hatred. Lilith is his daughter, so he's just being a good dad, checking up on his daughter at work, definitely not doing anything nefarious, and we will continue on through here. He's going to help us dispel the illusion guarding the Horodric Vault, and we will then continue on here. Neyrelle has the absolutely wonderful idea, upon seeing us murder her mother, to try and bring us here to the Horodric Vault and see if we can find any information where we can figure out what exactly Lilith wants to do down there. But whenever I come in here, this place always reminds me of my grandfather's basement. He had this sort of unfinished stonework on the side of his basement. Either that or I'm lying to set up the worst pun you've ever heard. And I would play chess with him in his basement. As you may be able to tell from my words per minute exceeding my actions per minute in a speedrun, I was very, very talkative as a child, and he would give me a chess piece as sort of a talking stick to let me know when it was my turn
You might want
to
take
talk.
a step back.
I can't remember what he would call that, though.
Chess piece chat.
That's right, Narel, a chess piece chat. Thank you.
No.
I'm so sorry. That I mostly run to an audience of 0 viewers, so I have to entertain myself somehow, and coming up with ways to punish the pace audience was one of them. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and set a map convenience pin for later, and then we will go ahead and let Narel repeat the worst punchline in the history of humor to dispel the seal on this door for us as we go and fight the second mini-boss of the game, which is Chort. I'm not quite sure how Chort got in here, given that there was a magical seal guarding the door, but Chort is apparently one of the lieutenants in Lilith's army, and she came in here. She's going to get very, very angry, like a librarian guarding an overdue book, and we're going to fight her and then steal that overdue book. As we continue through the run here, you will notice that I am about to hit level 10, so I'm going to go ahead and drop off some Hydras here in the hopes that they clear a little bit more XP for me, and I hit level 10 right as I exit this dungeon, so when I can do some extra chores when I get back into the town. So far, our combat prowess based on the items that we have is pretty good. I'm starting to get anxious about my accessories, though. Yellow boots! Hype! Yellow boots! We're going to have a moment where I'm going to be able to read what they are, but in the minute, we're just going to have to hold, wait, and then I will tell you guys in around 30 seconds, I'll be able to, during some overworld dialogue, check whether those are, like, good yellow boots or okay yellow boots.
Interesting.
All right, and then we will have 2 pieces of item RNG to read out. These yellow boots are... Oh, the worst possible yellow boots. It's okay. Good yellow boots have a 1 in 3 chance of occurring. Once you find yellow boots at all, great yellow boots have a 1 in 18 chance of occurring. So it's not that surprising that we got mediocre ones. Now we're going to come over here and we're going to craft some elixirs. I'm going to craft 5 elixirs of advantage, and while I do some other chores in town, Vitruth, could you explain why we're choosing elixirs in general? And if you remember, why elixirs an advantage?
Alright, so generally, elixirs add to your experience. Recently,
That's such a good amulet. That's such a good amulet. It has an 11% movement speed roll.
oh my god.
That's actually crazy. That item has a 1 in 17 chance of being movement speed, and then it's a top 50% roll on top of that. So like, that is a top
Huge.
3% amulet of all possible ones that could occur. That's cracked.
Pretty much every single Diablo game, movement speed is huge. And this is no different. So getting movement speed on any item is big. 11 or higher is pretty big, especially this early.
Yes.
So that's awesome.
We're on the best speedrunning patch of all time because the devs heard my pleas and changed the base move speed roll from 5.5% to 10.5% when this patch came out about 3 weeks ago. And as a consequence, every world record in every category is very, very vulnerable right now. In any case, going back to elixirs.
Oh yeah, so recently, elixirs and XP in general is now multiplicative. So every single bonus to XP is even more important than it used to be in previous patches.
Reverend Mother Father expects.
Elixir of Advantage, though, is going to improve your lucky hit chance and your attack speed. So attack speed, as Crimson was talking about earlier with one-handed weapons and also looking for attack speed on items, is actually going to increase the amount of attacks he's going to be able to do, which includes his spells. There's not really a cast time necessarily, it's more of an attack speed time that you're trying to reduce. Lucky hit chance is something that we discovered shortly after the Season 4 patch came out with a certain temperament that you add to your yellow items. And once Crimson gets to level 15 and he's able to use tempering, he's going to be able to add something to his weapons, which is going to add an insane amount of damage on lucky hit. So it's a huge flat damage bonus, but it has a random chance of occurring, or a percent chance of occurring, and this potion is going to increase that a decent amount. Not a crazy amount, but a decent amount. Every little bit is going to help quite a bit.
Yeah, so the items are RNG, the dungeons are RNG, the boss layouts are RNG, the modifiers the bosses have are RNG, and our solution to solving all of that is even more RNG. So this game's very replayable, but also sometimes it's just not your speedrun. Now we're going to come up to the hardest part of the speedrun early on for movement tech, where I try and layer movement. Every single time that I put this little totem down on the ground, it will be at a pedestal guarded by a super elite monster. These are actually the only super elites that occur in the world tier that I'm running in. It's because they're hard-coded into the game. I'm running on normal difficulty, which is the easiest possible one, because it's the fastest to run on the easiest one. But what that ends up meaning is that I have to walk up to this place, try and put down this little pedestal, and then clear the mob afterward. And I need to be very careful about how I interact with that mob while I am vulnerably putting down this little totem on each pedestal. What we're doing right now is we've discovered that there's a way to temporarily resurrect Venard, Nerel's mom, who we just murdered moments ago. And now, in an effort to continue pursuing Lilith deeper into that mine, we have to get a blessing. So we are trying to follow Mom, and we have to go ask Dad. We're going to meet the literal creation deity of the entire world in a cutscene in a second here. And what we're doing is we are seeking the church's blessing to absolve ourselves of sufficient sin to become worthy of hanging out with Dad on his custody weekend. In any case, I'm going to run along here. We're going to meet up with Vigo, the captain of the mine, who accepted a bribe to let Venard into the mine with Lilith, and who is therefore trying to absolve himself of the guilt for all of the deaths caused by Lilith getting in there. And our dad is going to be pretty dismissive. Inaria's not the nicest guy. He is going to immediately call us unworthy and tell us that we aren't cool enough. Then, somewhat hilariously, the head of the local church is going to hear that and go, "Yeah, but he didn't kill you, so you're fine." And then she's going to bless us ourselves, and we're going to be able to get farther in there. This is the Alabaster Monastery. I am very sad to say that, to my knowledge, this is a campaign-only area, and that during the speedrun I don't have time to show this to you. But during the walk through here, I walk by 15 or 20 tapestries and statues, each one of which has beautiful art and extensive lore attached to it. So if I were to click on any of these tapestries that I'm running past here, or paintings, you would find out a whole lot more about the legendarium of the world and the creation myth that is sort of the inciting incident for the events of Diablo 4 in particular. And the fact that I don't get to do that is a feature of great sorrow for me, as I'm a deep, deep Diablo 4 lore nerd, as you will find out later on when I go off on a pre-planned half-hour rant. In any case here, we're going to go ahead and go back to Corvalar, where Prava, the head of the local church, which is sort of a cult of personality around this creation deity angel in particular, she's on retreat with a bunch of other military leaders as they plan a full frontal assault on Hell itself, which is definitely a great idea that will totally go well. So she's planning that, and we're bothering her to try and actually kill the demon while she's out in the open. In the meantime, Prava, the head of the church, is going to continue planning this longer military campaign for us.
Blessed are those who bask in the light. Let our
Now,
faith
there is
be our
actually,
armor
so far as I'm aware, a
against the
multiplayer
approaching
campaign-only trick that is possible on this dialogue interaction here.
You've returned.
You can actually get the dialogue to bug out.
Let us speak inside.
Prava is going to have a very slow walk into this little chapel over here. And if you're multiplayer campaigning, as I was informed by Carl Sagan42 of Super Mario Maker fame, who actually runs Diablo 4, you can actually get the dialogue to bug out and make her not need to walk inside, and she'll have that conversation with you while you're still outside. But like I said, she's going to hear that Dad didn't kill us, and we're going to go back into the mine and try and hunt down Lilith more directly.
I think Inarius is more of a great-great-great-great-great-grandfather.
Sure. True. We're at least 1,300 years removed from Lilith and Inarius commingling their blood to create a clay golem into which they breathed life and named Lunarian, who later took on the mantle of the balance and became the first necromancer and the first Nephilim, Rothma. And that was like over 1,000 years ago, and we're weaker now. So at least he is our great, however many generations that is, grandfather. But I'm gonna keep calling him dad for the sake of audience clarity. In the meantime, I'm gonna fight my way through some mobs here. These Fallen really want to get in my way. I am not very pleased with that at all. And then I'm gonna continue to use teleport to clip through long sections of the dungeon here and make sure that Neyrel, who is walking very, very slowly behind me because I now have that movement speed amulet, she's actually going to fall off of the edge of the screen, and if I time it just right, I can get her to snap to me up here. And I drop her off directly on top of where she wants to finish, and that saves a couple seconds. That is one of the easier follow character manipulations in the game. There are many. The hardest one actually takes place in the cairns, and was the first one that was discovered by a player of Diablo 2 speedrunning fame, Gymnasium, who was one of the first runners for Diablo 4 upon release. As we continue through here, we're going to see visions of Rothma, who was the first human in some sense. And I'm going to be holding on to teleport as we try to do some of the fancier teleport click trips here through walls. Rothma is going to tell us his life story, and he's going to tell us about this prophecy that is cited repeatedly throughout the campaign. Ooh, and we're going to get our first rubber banding. That's exciting. And then what I'm doing in this room is I'm destroying some tumors of hatred, and when I destroy each one, it unlocks the next little area. So I have to do some movement layering here where I drop off hydras that destroy tumors that unlock the next region, and then I destroy a tumor which unlocks the next region. We're going to continue through. In the meantime, we're going to start hearing some sounds of someone in a big suit of armor progressing ahead of us. So this is some audio foreshadowing for the area boss fight for Act 1. Oop, our first ring and a yellow weapon. Our first yellow weapon. We're so excited. This is a perfect time for it to show up. I have already hit.
It is a staff. It is a two-handed staff.
It's okay though, because I'm not going to temper it. I can't temper it yet, so anything is good for right now. In any case, I'm going to continue destroying tumors here, and we're going to see how good of a staff it is. That's very good. It's not great because it doesn't have a flat damage modifier, but it's pretty good. We also got our first piece of voluntary jewelry, which is a blue ring that I will check out while I am climbing up this wall here. How good is this? It's useless. Okay. It's fine. In the meantime, we're going to continue progressing through here, killing ghouls, fighting corpse fiends, having a wonderful time. And I am going to do another fancy clip here, and we're going to continue progressing through.
Well, for those who don't play Diablo 4, jewelry is essentially where you get your resistances. That's their main purpose, and then, you know, the additive abilities on them are really what makes or breaks whether it's good or not. So just having them is a benefit in and of itself, but if they don't have good attributes, then they are mediocre at best.
Now I'm going to stand here and waste time and hopefully be able to hit this clip first try. Got it, nice. That one's hard. And now we're going to go ahead and have a fight against the Area 1 boss. This is the Act 1 boss. This is Lilith's Lament. He ends up being a frequent dungeon boss later on once you finish the campaign. This model is used and is called the Blood Bishop. Our goal is to do him in 2 phases. The boss naturally has 4, but we have a phenomenal yellow weapon, so we got close to doing him in 1. Every time that you see one of these little triangular pips in the health bar of a boss, know that it's intended to break up the boss mechanics. They behave differently as you cross all of those different thresholds in HP, and we are going to be able to do this guy in just 2 phases. Nope, 3. We got a 3 cycle. Very sad.
Another thing to note, if you're taking out a boss, those little pips also have him drop health tokens.
And he's going to drop Weathered Breeches, another pair of boots for us, more chances at movement speed. And then we get our first legendary item of the game, Viga's Protecting Amulet. So the captain of this mine guard that took the bribe, that started the whole problem, feels really guilty, and he goes to the Cathedral of Light and says, how can I resolve myself of guilt? And in short, they respond, kill yourself. And so he puts on this Iron Maiden type armor that saps all of his strength but makes him stronger temporarily. And as a consequence, he comes to protect us during that boss fight. And then the magic item that he's using to summon those bubbles that protect us from the floor damage in that room, we then get as an amulet. That amulet, like all other items, can spawn with various different affixes. Oh my gosh, the horse is stuck on everything. Please. Please, horse, cooperate.
So something to note, the man that Crimson just clicked on and left is dead Rathma.
Yes.
So the firstborn child of Lilith and Inarius, laying dead on the steps. And there was a cutscene involving him where Inarius kills him. So not great when your dad kills you. I believe it's called filicide. And that is depicted in this game.
Yes, and then Lilith shows up, and Lilith is actually painted as a very relatable character, and she is very, very tender with dead Rothma. She crosses his arms and closes his eyes, and then she weeps, and she says, I do not know if you would have taken your place at my side, but I would have saved it for you all the same. And then she cries, and it actually is so well acted and so well animated that most people by the end of the campaign are sad that they can't side with Lilith, which shows that the writers did their job, that someone attempting directly to enslave humanity, people are still like, but please let me side with her? Now I'm going to demonstrate.
Humanized a demon.
True. And now I'm going to demonstrate the fact that I have terminal brain rot, because every time I click on this character,
I'm looking for Ahradran.
I always hear that and think, I'm looking for a man in finance. I don't know why, something about the cadence of the voice line. It gets to me every time.
He's upstairs in the...
Now we are entering into Act 2, where we are going to meet the second of our wise old mage companions. This is Donan, the chief tragic character of the game.
Why the rush, my boy? You know, I found some of my old Horadric tomes. Stay here, and we can go through them together.
I can take some with me.
And then this is his teenage son, Yoren. Skazilin is a phenomenally interesting area, and it shows off like just how well the fantasy world building of Diablo has come up over the years. So Diablo 1 was originally written to be sort of a session RPG, something that you would play in a day or a weekend and then replay, and that's why it was all procedurally generated in RNG, to increase the replayability of what is frankly a very short game. But what that means is that they needed a lot of flavor text for all of the possible item descriptions that could show up on the tens of millions of possible items. And so the writers just wrote stuff. Oh, this came from such and such demon, and this is from the person who was a scholar of such and such religion or culture. And then as the fantasy has grown, they've needed to like retcon all of that flavor text from Diablo 1 and 2 to create a cohesive world. And Skazilin shows off, like, in my mind, just how well they've done that. Because we're going to experience a narrative. Unfortunately, in the speedrun, we will not be able to watch all the cutscenes and enjoy it. But we're going to experience a narrative where we see multiple different religions, multiple different histories, multiple different characters torn between all of the possible overlaps of those cultures and religions. And that is really, really well done. This fight, though, is hard, so give me a second.
Well, something to note regarding retcon and something like that is you could consider, oh wow, Dragon Staff, there you go.
I'm getting multiple yellow items, but none of them are boots.
Unfortunate, but still strong. But yeah, retconning, I mean, you can also consider a lot of it being you know, how accurate is the person telling the initial story versus the person that you're hearing from it the second time. You know, unreliable narrators are very prevalent. You know, there's a lot of people lying in the Diablo world, so.
Definitely, definitely. Now we're going to go up here to a city called Braystag. Braystag is under military dominion by that sort of Catholic-like big marble church with cathedrals and crosses religion called the Cathedral of Light. But this local area that we're in called Skazglin is the home of a druidic culture who believe in wild magics. And so they believe heavily in earth and lightning and storms and communion with animals and plants. And these two cultures are at each other's throats pretty heavily throughout this act. And there are characters which are totems for all of the different possible interactions here. This is the captain of the local guard, and this is the captain of the Cathedral of Light Guard that's here. Neither one of them is friends with the other, and they're actively saying mean things to each other as we come in. And now we're going to hang out with Yorin, Donan's teenage son. Donan is a member of this ancient magic order called the Haradrim, sworn to use their magics to protect the world from the influences of the burning hells. But Yorin is his son, and Donan wants him to become a mage, and he doesn't want to become a mage, and he also doesn't really want to take on the local culture of being a druid. He wants to become a member of the Cathedral of Light Guard. And in this scene that we just skipped, he tells us that he's ready to sort of confess to his dad that he's ready to decide for himself what his future will be, and he's ready to sort of turn the corner into adulthood. And right as he burdens us with the knowledge that he is sort of ready to step completely into adulthood, what happens? He dies. So, not a very good place to live. Skazglin, you know, adolescents who have hopeful futures and are turning the corner into deciding their own fate are immediately murdered.
Something also to keep in mind, Church of Light was actually fabricated by an artist.
Yes.
Whereas in Skazglin, druids were more of a natural process of creation of in and of themselves, you know, mystics and all that.
Yes. Lots of the different religions and cultures in Diablo are descendants of sort of the first generation of humans that ever existed. The direct descendants of Lilith and Arnarius, as well as all the other significant angels and demons that they sort of rallied to their cause, those firstborn children are called Nephilim. They are immortal, and they are in fact like stronger in combat, in magic arts, and spiritual power than angels and demons are themselves. Consequently, Yorin. Consequently, each one of them had sort of a unique personality in communion with different type of magic or combat or strength in the world. And the druids are the children of Fiaklagayar, and the barbarians are the children of multiple different ancients, and so on and so forth. So these sort of human... Yes. Gauntlets? No? Alright. Nice. We're continuing on through here. So this is one of several fetch quests that occur in the game. I really want some bonus XP. Please give it to me. Thank you. More boots. Thank you. And as we continue on here, we will check and see if these are good. Oh my goodness gracious, what good boots. Not yellow though, so they're not perfect, but we're very happy with those boots.
That did it.
Getting close to 15.
Very close to 15, at which point things will break. I'm a little bit behind the ideal experience curve. I took a little bit less experience than I would have liked to during Act 1, but I should still hit it before our combat with Erida.
Demonic markings.
Lilith's been here.
Something's written on the altar.
So far we have yellow boots and we have blue boots and a blue amulet, both of which have movement speed. And then I have a backup pair of yellow boots. And I have this amulet, which will become very, very important later on in the run. I'm going to tuck it away in the corner of my inventory here. Now get ready to experience the worst audio clipping of your life.
An elegy written by Erida. This is a memorial to all who died fighting Astaroth.
The weak perish.
Just dead air.
Forgotten.
Bear in mind, throughout this quest line, Yorin is continuously telling us to hurry up.
Wait!
And then he gives us 8 seconds of gap between that voice line and this one. Man, we're getting really good item RNG, just not for boots. Please give me boots.
Something has happened to her.
We don't know that yet.
So much. Defiled. Demonic scars upon their graves.
Another staff.
Please give me boots, you jerk. It's a phenomenal staff, I just don't care.
These rooms.
What is happening?
Right. Solutions.
Something to note, you know, staff damage in the end is not like make or break for this game. It's that lucky hit proc for the elemental surge. That is what is going to be doing the big damage.
Yes. Unfortunately, it looks like we won't hit level 15 before Erida, which is okay. If we were world record hunting, I would reset at this point. But since we are not, it's actually going to give a great opportunity to show you guys what boss fights look immediately before and after tempering, because I am suddenly going to go from fights taking their full duration to literally one-shotting endgame bosses with this item modifier that we'll be able to apply once I hit level 15.
Did you think we'd so easily join the dead, lad? How did you find your
The
way
backup
up
strat here is that ordinarily I would be teleporting to town, and while this dialogue slowly progresses in the overworld, I'd be doing all of my in-town chores. Since I can't do that here because I'm not level 15 yet,
Erida came
I will do that later, and when that happens is going to be when I'm in a very small town that has a very conveniently placed blacksmith, and hopefully I will not lose very, very much time to that tempering. Probably I'll end up costing me something like 45 seconds, but that's not too bad for marathon-safe backups. Right now, though, we are going to go and fight Erida. So when we come into the region, we meet Donan, and Donan is a local hero as a consequence of his resolving of a previous conflict during an era that was called the Days of Ash. A significant demon, a lieutenant of Mephisto's army, conquered this region of Skazglan, this northern region of the map here, and 3 great heroes, 2 druids and a mage, ended up defeating Astaroth, striking him down and killing him forever, allegedly. And as a consequence, those people became great heroes of the region. The first of them is Donan, who is the mage that we already met, Yoren's father. He represents sort of one pillar of the region's culture, of druidic culture in general, which is that he is a great scholar and appreciator of history and language. The druids take great pride in being able to read the old runes and so forth. The second is Erida. Erida is the greatest storm caller of her generation. It was said that she was born in a great tempest and breathed it in with her first breath, quieting the winds. So she's very, very frustrated with the outcome of the Days of Ash. Donan decided to seek the assistance of the Cathedral of Light, a cult of personality that aims to undermine the significance of Fiach Lagar, the sort of father of the druidic culture and race. And so she is not at all happy that they've been invited into her land. And she has a very accelerationist ideology. When Lilith comes to her and tries to find information about what happened to Astaroth, who in fact cannot die, at least not by human hands, Erida gives a speech which says something to the effect of, hard times make strong men make easy times make weak men. Everyone's weak, so I'm going to deliberately destroy my homeland by giving information to someone I know to be evil to hopefully make my culture strong again. So essentially she's sabotaging the progress that she made for her own culture, and that is the death of Erida. You can see that that fight took at full... Oh my goodness gracious. A perfectly timed legendary item. Let's see what's on it. That's actually very nice. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. There are, at last count, something like 60 possible modifiers that can show up on on sorcery items in the game, and as a consequence, there are maybe 3 or 4 which are like game-breakingly good and would save me multiple minutes on their own. This is sort of in that second tier of like, it's very nice. It doesn't really contribute significant time save, but it is nice to have as a backup option. And we have hit level 15, so I'm going to go a little bit out of my way hoping to find more items here. I'm actually going to go ahead and fight a treasure goblin, if you can explain what that is while I track this boy down.
Sure. So treasure goblins started appearing in Diablo games in Diablo 3. They are a fan favorite of a lot of Diablo players. Ooh, that's a nice little amulet drop. So essentially, the idea behind them is they have a big sack of items. They don't attack you, they just run away, and you need to kill them, and you get their items that they've collected. Goblins in general are considered things that are going to be collectors, and you're gonna kill the goblin collector, and you're gonna get his items.
This is one of the
Simple
things.
as that.
This is one of the things about Diablo speedrunning in general, and I think Diablo 2 is one of the greatest speed games of all time for this reason. The on-the-fly decision-making quality is super important. So for example, what I'm doing in my head is going, well, I need such and such an item. How much time will it take me to kill the treasure goblin? I have to guess based on the goblin's position and orientation. How much time will I save? Depends what item drops, so I have to be willing to take on some amount of risk in order to figure out whether or not that payoff will happen. And the payoff decisions that you make are different in every single iteration of you playing the game.
You might not even find a treasure goblin as well, so there's that. There are some events where treasure goblins appear more often, and due to those events, the speed runs during those times are essentially prevented. There's also Mother's Blessing, which I believe we're going to chat about in a little bit, which adds additional experience to your characters, but I believe that there's currently an ongoing bug regarding that for campaign runs, and if that can be confirmed by Blizzard, then I think we can go forward with accepting this, but we're gonna get a consensus between all of the Diablo 4 speedrun mods before going forward with it.
Yes, I will go ahead and let you know it's extremely unlikely at this point that we get a really, really good time, but we're going to continue trying anyways. In the meantime, I am using that blacksmith modification system. Oh my gosh. Man, I'm having a great day for everything except for boot RNG. It's okay. So, I got a bunch of really good temper rolls. I will explain them in a minute. There is a bit of lore that I want to talk about here. We're going to go and meet the second of the druids that worked with Donan in the previous age. In the meantime, we're going to hang out with his dog. And this dog is a very friendly fellow, but he only checks where exactly we are. We're supposed to escort him to his master, or he's supposed to escort us. Not entirely clear what actually is supposed to happen here. But in any case, as we continue along here, I want to continue gathering experience. There's a particular level threshold I want to fit, which is level 23, and I want to hit that before I fight the Act 3 boss, which is Broll. And then after that, I will want to deliberately suppress my level as much as possible, quite confusingly. So what I'm going to do is this dog only checks exactly where I am at specific points in this marsh, which is called the Bloodmoor, because that's not mud on the ground. And so I'm going to be running ahead of and behind him. He's going to continue walking on a very fixed path, and I'm going to be hunting to see if I can find elites or any other monsters that I can easily kill to gather quick experience. Then I'm going to check in with the dog right as he comes to a rest at individual places where I know that he will ahead of time. Because I don't have to continuously escort him, I just need to make sure that I'm with him at very fixed points in the marsh. And then now we're going to go and meet Nefane. Nefane doesn't appear to be having a very good day, folks. Maybe we'll come back later. I love that his first dialogue is parentheses, moan of agony, as though we couldn't tell from his entrails being all over the floor that it wasn't his very best day and nobody came to his birthday party. One of the interesting things about the Bloodmoor, and in fact about many overworld regions, and the rubber banding as we get through here, is that since I'm still hunting for yellow boots, I am going to not walk the line straight fastest path. And the reason for that is because I'm looking for some chests that can spawn at specific spawn points. I don't know that they will, so we're just hunting for RNG, and I'm going to be walking very slightly inefficiently here. We got one chest. It has pants in it. I don't need pants. I need boots. It's all. I made a sign. I had people sign it, and you won't just give me boots that have the good RNG modifiers.
Technically, you do have boots.
I do. I do.
Just not the good boots.
By the way, if there are donations that need to be read, now is a good time. I have a bunch of lackadaisical pathing in combat here for about 90 seconds.
Sure, I do have one. Mount 305 donated $10, saying, "Let's go Crimson. Time to boot Lilith back to Manether. She will feel your sting. Best of luck, bud. So proud of you."
Nice, thank you. Unfortunately, I don't have the audio in my headphones for that, so I'm sorry to whoever that donor was.
So I think we can probably explain what tempering that you did and what you got on the rolls.
Come to me, spawn of hatred.
So he got a really good movement speed roll, which is like exactly what you want on his boots. I think they were kind of okay rolls on his weapon. I didn't actually get a good look at it.
1900 out of 2400, so like 70%
nice,
roll.
Nice, yeah. I could tell it wasn't a low roll, but I didn't actually see it. So yeah, that is a decent roll. So he's going to be doing some big damage. Not a perfect roll, but you don't need a perfect roll to take down bosses.
Anything above 1600, and I should be able to one phase every boss if I am playing correctly. It will require some quality of play from me, so I will need to focus during a couple of the boss fights. If I had gotten a perfect roll, things would be easy, and I would be casually reading Twitch chat the entire time.
Classic.
So there is actually an interesting mechanic in the game regarding teleporting during campaign speedruns. This is one of the few venues where I will actually be able to explain it at full length. When I finish a quest, the game advances like a world state, right? So it's just keeping track of what should and shouldn't be active based on where I am in the campaign, what NPCs should be in different places, and so on and so forth. While it is updating that modifier for whatever reason, I am not allowed to use the town portal system. So as a consequence, I need to look at the minimap, and while it's updating the world state for whatever reason, every little marker on the map that shows where a staircase is or a gap I can jump over, these sorts of white diamond or triangular shaped modifiers exist. And I can look at the minimap and see when those unload and then reload to know when it's finished modifying the world state for me to then be able to teleport to the next place. This is a system that is only important during campaign speedruns. All other speedrun categories, that is completely irrelevant, as you aren't examining quest states very often in any of the categories that I've seen run. And so as a consequence, it's really sort of a unique campaign mechanic that very few people who play the game have any reason to know.
Now, fortunately, several of the old Diablo 4 speedrun categories have been sunsetted due to updates in the game. They're no longer applicable. Nightmare Dungeons, there's no longer a Nightmare Dungeon 100 that you can do, so they were sunsetted several seasons ago, and now the capstones are no longer in the game. So the capstone speedrun, which was my favorite speedrun, is no longer in the game as well.
Yeah, a lot of those speedrun categories were really great for people who were already very experienced Diablo players and wanted to get a taste of sort of the cheesy abuse of low-level tempers and other similar things to get an idea of what the speedrunning is like compared to what playing regular endgame content on your level 100, fully paragoned sorcerer, starting something at level 1 and sort of seeing what us speedrunners are into. Unfortunately, we do not have a really great category for that right now. That said, I do want to advertise a category I think we'll be adding if we can get sufficient interest, which is that we want to add a category where you start at level 1 and you go from character creation to defeating the hardest boss in the game, entering world tier Torment 4 and defeating Uber Lilith. And that category seems like it'll be sort of the prestige category for mechanical skill, whereas this is much more memorization dependent than that one is. So I expect a lot more regular Diablo players, the bigger streamers and so on and so forth, to be interested in that a lot more than they are in campaign speedrunning, which is a pretty small category right now. Though I do have a couple of people that I want to shout out who run it. As I've been running through here, you may have noticed that there are some places where I'm just teleporting deeper into the dungeon a little bit, and some places where I'm doing fancy things, pausing, lining up, putting my mouse over a specific place in the wall, and really getting a big time save there. Most of those were discovered not by me, but by a wonderful player who actually does hardcore campaign speedruns, where if his character dies, they die. And that guy's name is Matt B. Games. He's one of the great pioneers of finding these wall clips, or as I sometimes call them, because I have a background in Counter-Strike, wall bangs.
Was it another vision?
So what we're discovering is that Donan's teenage son, Yorin, has been abducted, and that in fact the great demon Astaroth was not killed. He was merely imprisoned in a soul stone. Soul stones, if you don't know how Diablo works, are magical devices. They are made from shards of the world stone, and they can contain the souls of angels, demons, and humans. Oop. Unfortunately, there is a great tradition in Sanctuary of treating soul stones like they tell you to in the infomercial. Soul stone, apply directly to the forehead. Soul stone. And so as a consequence, this demon has taken over his son's body. That's what it looks like when you have the tempers, by the way. The demon has HP and then suddenly they don't. Unfortunately, Astaroth does need to continue destroying Karagar, so he's hard stuck at 1 HP, and I'm just going to follow him around. That puppy that we tried to kill earlier didn't die, even though I did bring the puppy to 0 HP, because the game forces this to happen, so there's literally no way to save this town, unfortunately. Diablo is not a game where you get a whole lot of choices, but that is the Act 2 boss, and all major boss fights after this will look like that, where I show up, there is supposed to be a big fight with fancy animations, and then the boss just suddenly dies.
Something to note with Elemental Surge. It can crit as well. So Crimson did get some crit gloves earlier, so that can also increase his damage substantially with it.
These numbers are a little bit old. There was just a stat switch in the game, but to give you an idea of just how ridiculous Elemental Surge is, in a previous game patch, I would fight one of the mid-game bosses, Andariel, at something like level 19. It would vary a little bit, sometimes 18, sometimes 20. At that level, Andariel as a boss would have 26,500 HP. And my main hand weapon would do 80 damage. So it would take 100 or so hits, if you account for her damage reduction, for me to be able to kill her. With Elemental Surge, I was able to single target crit for 56,000. So instead of taking 100 hits, I was able to do more than double her HP in one attack. And that is just how ridiculous this is. Elemental Surge is a bit of a niche speedrunning strategy because damage scaling in the game as your character levels up is exponential. So 56,000 is absolutely trivial damage contribution compared to what's possible in the end game. Just to give you one example right now, on the current patch, the strongest character class is Spiritborn, and a fully kitted out Spiritborn can do damage that is best stated in scientific notation, 10 to the 24th. So 56,000 is nothing.
Stat squish, by the way.
Yeah, that's post-stat squish. Pre-stat squish, I was doing 56,000 with a cheesy strategy. Post-stat squish, which scaled everything down by roughly a factor of 100, they are doing 10 to the 24th damage in some situations. We now enter Karagar, where we find out that this game's wise old man character has substantially more character flaws than his predecessor, Lorath. excuse me, than his predecessor Deckard Cain, we find our companion Lorath, the great wisdom that we seek from him. We find him in a puddle of his own vomit in a cow stall. He's going to go ahead and tell us why he came over here. It's because he's Obi-Wan and Darth Vader is in fact Anakin. The pale man that we saw in our earlier vision used to be his apprentice, known as Elias, and he is now sort of a dark Jedi turned Sith who is using his forces for evil. Elias believes, rightly or wrongly, that in all of history, the only entity that was not human, that was willing to confront Hell directly and try to end the eternal conflict, was Lilith. So he allies himself with the demon and in fact directly resummons her in one of the best game release trailers of all time. And as a consequence, we have to deal with this whole mess. And it's in fact Lorath's fault. So Lorath drinks off his guilt there. I'm going to continue opening chests as we progress through the game. By the way, the donation earlier was read out to me. Thank you to my close friend Mount, a friend of mine from a Dota clan that I run in an amateur league. A wonderful guy who actually used to work in esports. He was making some inside jokes in that message.
Far too easy.
Now we are going to go and meet Genbar. Genbar is a stone carver, and he's our first example of just exactly how pervasive and seductive the ideology is of Lilith and her companion character Elias. Genbar is a lonely man who does not have great social skills, I relate, and he is convinced, he's given adoration by Elias and given attention by Lilith and is empowered, and this makes him feel stronger. So he goes from carving stone to carving up bodies.
What a dumb mess.
Not exactly a very pleasant scene here. And when we discover this, that Elias has started trying to sort of build up an army of followers, this is our first hint that we are going to have to fight more than just Lilith, and that Elias himself will be a significant commander under her.
Thank you for sending Master Elias to show me the way. I long for the day when we stand by your side and set the cleansing
Iris Steph in chat saying 10 to the 24th is crazy. Yeah, people are often asking, like, what even is a sextillion? Like, the numbers are really ridiculous. In a previous patch, there was actually someone who hit integer overflow, and the game literally displayed an infinity symbol for their damage. So Diablo is a game that, to make a joke out of it, is about optimizing the hell out of Sanctuary. And so there's a lot of min-maxing. It's very much a speedrunner's playground, but there are definitely some situations where things get pretty ridiculous in the end game, which is why I like running these low-level categories, where things are a lot more linear and the tricks are a bit subtler to find. So we're going to go ahead and defeat the Harbinger of Suffering, Mammon, and Genbar, and then I am going to go... Oh, come on. Give me the lucky hit. There we go.
Nice.
I say, apparently I have to ask it directly to give me the lucky hit.
That was a crit too.
Nice.
So you saw 12K.
Bad news for it. Make yourself useful and head
Which
to
is
Doorway Monastery.
wildly more. I think the last time I measured post-patch, Genbar has something like 8k total HP.
Speaking of min-maxing, I'd like to point out Crimson's shirt is a 4 greater affix t-shirt.
A 4 greater affix mythic t-shirt. It's the highest possible quality t-shirt.
Such a good shirt.
For any Diablo 4 people who found us on the Discover page, that joke is for you.
It is such an amazing shirt.
Unfortunately, it is something that I just made for myself. It's not merchandise you can buy anywhere because I don't have any contact with Blizzard, and I really don't want to get sued for using their font and everything else in order to make goofy t-shirts.
What about the others? Diablo!
But Blizzard should definitely sell that shirt.
All right, so now we're going to go ahead and continue here through the Orbe Monastery. The important thing that we're doing here in the campaign is that we're trying to figure out just exactly how Lilith got resummoned into the world. And to quote Lorath, the scholars of Orbe are the principal experts on summoning in all of the world. And so we come here, he's written multiple letters to them over the course of months, and hasn't gotten any reply. By the way, since the game started, it hasn't been like an hour and 15 minutes. It's been multiple months. And so, as a consequence, we are sent down here to try and check in on the abbot, and we immediately find screaming people and corpses, and this guy's experiencing acute PTSD. So, something's gone wrong. The answer is that Elias came here and strong-armed them into teaching him about summonings, and he used that knowledge to summon Lilith back from the outer darkness into the world. So things not really going well at the Orbe Monastery. Those of you who play Diablo 4, if there's anyone in chat, you will recognize this as the place in the post-game where you can summon Grigor the Galvanic Saint. Many of the combat systems that exist later on in the game take place at campaign dungeon locations. Now we are going to do my favorite speedrun tech, which is just clicking really fast. I'm supposed to read out all of these different scriptures that exist on these different pedestals here and use them to open the store over here with a secret password, but I can skip all of that by just clicking really fast and getting straight through it. Incredibly impressive technique, I know. So here is the abbot, and he has forsaken his people. You can see, if I don't get the lucky hit right away, this fight's going to take quite a while. But teleport itself has a lucky hit chance, so I can actually use teleport as a damage spell. And that is that. Legendary boots, please for the love of goodness. Please for the love of goodness have the correct modifier, please. Why? Why? I am being taunted by the RNG. That's okay. So to explain a little bit of what exactly I'm looking for, every boot, every item type in the game, in fact, has one specific type of modifier that will always show up. Boots always have mobility modifiers relating to our evade, our little jump forward that we do to get ourselves out of trouble by pressing spacebar. That evade modifier can be one of 3 different things, 2 of which are useful in the end game. One just gives us more charges on evade, so I can jump forward 3 or 4 or 5 times, and has been used to...
Which is what Crimson just got.
Another one reduces the cooldown on evade every time that I use an attack. That is also very useful in the end game. Neither one of those is at all useful in the early game in these speedrun categories. The one that I want, the one that I'm hoping for, has a 1 in 3 chance of occurring. It's every time I evade, I gain 75% movement speed for 1.5 seconds. And that has a 5-second cooldown, so if I'm doing the math in my head correctly, it's something equivalent to getting like a 25% movement speed increase. And that by itself, if those boots had showed up as early as possible, as compared to what we're getting right now, which is as late as possible, the absence or presence of that modifier on its own is, roughly speaking, a 6-minute difference in campaign speedrun timing. So again, if you're world record hunting, you're going to be doing resets in the first act over and over and over, hoping for that 1 in 18 chance at yellow boots that have that modifier. Now we are going to come over here to Gul'ran. Gul'ran is my least favorite section in the game, and it's because the mob type changes. When we enter here, you're going to notice that there are cannibals. I don't mind cannibals. I could get down with a cannibal, that's fine. It's that there are a lot of flies. These little fly swarms that follow me do a stacking slow, and it's multiplicative stacking slow. So if I get stuck into one of these mobs and the flies start adding stuff onto me, I get a lot slower. So the ultimate ability that I'm using is called Unstable Currents, and it has a bunch of different effects. The main thing you would use it for if you're playing Diablo generally is that it applies a modifier to all of your shock spells. You may notice none of my combat spells, other than teleport, are electric type spells. And so it actually, I don't care about that at all. What I'm instead using it for is that it gives me a big amount of attack speed, which helps me get more chances per second to get those lucky hits out.
Maybe there is a chance Ayun lives.
How do I speedrun this? Is asked in the chat, Infinifiasco. By the way, production staff, you are welcome to tell me if there are interesting questions in the chat from people. This particular section of the campaign, it is very easy for me to take my attention away from things for a second. But as I was saying, in the general Diablo play, you would use this spell for the stuff that it does to modify your build if you're using a bunch of shocking type spells. What I do instead is it gives me attack speed, more chances to lucky hit, and it does this other thing where it zaps people around me. Very difficult wall clip. Careful lineup. I missed it. We'll try it one more time before we go. A little farther over to the left, a little farther up, I think.
Crimson, I think they were asking more so of eternal versus seasonal, and you know, a lot of seasonal mechanics over the years, or over the year that Diablo 4 has been out, have been slowly moved into the eternal sector as well. So this actual speed run can be ran both in a seasonal category, which will have the most up-to-date, you know, seasonal mechanics added, except for the certain things that are specifically only available after you complete the campaign, and it will also be able to be run in the Eternal Realm, which will have whatever is currently applied to the Eternal Realm. So
Yes.
both are different categories on speedrun.com.
Yes. It should be noted in the campaign the difference is really, really minimal. It essentially amounts to like the item table that you can drop over. And as I understand it right now, there's actually no difference for campaign speedruns between seasonal and eternal. That's not always the case, though, or at least it hasn't historically been, as I understand it. In other categories that exist, though, the seasonal versus eternal difference is enormous. Like we mentioned earlier, you can get items that modify your experience gain, and those are multiplicative. Some of those are seasonal specific items, like right now in the current season, you can kill Realm Walkers and get Seething Opals. Seething Opals give a big multiplicative bonus to your experience gain, and as a consequence, really change your low-level running strategy if you go out of your way to get one. In campaign speedrunning, though, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. All of the world records are within 1 or 2 minutes of each other on seasonal and eternal for every different character class.
Also, opals do not drop before you finish the main campaign, so you wouldn't be able to use them on this speedrun anyway.
Yep. So now we're going to run through the Gulron sewers, through the Awful Pits. Not AWFUL, OFFAL, as in animal intestines. And you're going to get to just understand exactly how annoying these flies are. They show up everywhere. We're going to continue using Flame Shield to burn them off. We're going to continue using our ultimate ability to burn them off. And we're going to continue progressing here. What we're doing is that we found in that previous place when we met Genbar the Stone Carver, the demon that was summoned during that fight had eaten a noble's hand. So we did an autopsy on that demon, and we discovered a signet ring from the noble family of this city, implying that the demon was here before it was there. And so we're trying to figure out and track down Elias and see exactly what's happening. Unfortunately, come on, Resplendent Chest, please. Please, Resplendent Chest, give me boots, please. My goodness. This is maybe the biggest dry spell I've ever had in a speedrun. We're about to run up to my favorite piece of tiny RNG. It is not impactful at all for speedrun timing, but I just enjoy. Over here in the corner, we can get a good tile or a bad tile. We got the good one. It saves 0.4 seconds, but I just find the pathing more enjoyable. So, hooray. We got the good tile here. Now we're going to go kill Mother's Judgment. She's going to say this. What was that you were saying? You were saying something? She tells us that we can't disturb Elias as he summons this great important demon named Andariel. By the way, content warning, Andariel is not wearing many clothes when we... Oh my goodness gracious. Look at this ring, Vitruth.
It's a nice one.
That's a crazy
also,
ring.
Something to keep in mind, basic attacks also have Lucky Hit. That has increased attack speed for that, but it also has an additive damage percent bonus. Damage percent also affects Elemental Surge as well.
This is like...
I guess that's the one thing he learned from me.
Crit strike damage also.
If instead of maximum life this had attack speed, like this would be full on like hacking accusations level good. I can't get boots, but I can apparently get everything else I could possibly want. Like if I wrote an email to the devs, I would ask them to add this ring as a quest drop item.
Should have killed him.
In any case, we're now about to get literally the worst rubber banding that occurs in the game. Oh, the loading zone didn't give me rubber banding. You can clap for that. That's absolutely...
That is big.
That's actually... It doesn't save much time, maybe 3 or 4 seconds, but there are a couple of places where I guess I'm moving faster than the game wants me to, or the loading system just intrinsically can't go that fast, and we end up rubber banding a lot in certain fixed places in the campaign. Right now what we're doing is we're walking up Mount Sivo. We figured out that the place where Elias, that sort of fallen dark mage character who summoned Lilith, he's going to try and summon one of the 7 great evils, the lesser evil, the Maiden of Anguish, and Dariel. And he's going to do that in the Temple of the Primes. So there are 7 great evils who were created from the 7 heads of the dragon Taphomet. The 3 great ones are Diablo, Mephisto, and Baal. The lesser 4 are Andariel, Duriel, Asmodan, and Belial. And in an effort to build up more strength for Lilith, they're going to try and recruit Andariel by resummoning her into the world, and so we need to get in there to try and stop that. So we're seeking blessings from each of the 3 primevals. We already have the blessings from Baal and Diablo. Now we're going to go ahead and get the blessing from Mephisto. Oh, that's weird. A portal shows up. I wonder who's in there. Oh, the dog. Oh, and we skipped his dialogue with the incredibly advanced speedrunning tech of clicking really fast. For some reason, you can get that dialogue and very, very few others throughout the game to just not exist. If you just click really fast, the dog no longer wants to talk to you. But this has now been revealed to us that that puppy is in fact a manifestation of the Lord of Hatred himself, Lilith's father, Mephisto. As a consequence, we have his blessing. The reason that we were in there, if you're a really deep Diablo nerd, like Vitruth and I are, you may have noticed, wait a second, why were the ancient barbarians in Mephisto's realm, in Diablo 2 Lord of Destruction, Baal is the one who attacks the barbarians? And the answer is, all of this stuff that Elias and Lilith are doing is really screwing up the order of things, and as a consequence, these barbarians who should be angry at the Lord of Destruction are instead in the realm of the Lord of Hatred. And now we're going to go in here and I have to do some very hard pathing. There's a Waller in here I have to dodge, if you could explain how that works, Vitruth, while I try and dodge this person.
Yeah, Wallers, or I guess grave attribute, monsters are an elite type that will basically trap you in a 3-sided wall. It is the only thing that you cannot break using Unstoppable. But luckily, Crimson is using a sorceress which can teleport over the wall. So a lot of his movement is going to be saved just in case he runs into one of these wallers. If they trap him, then it will cost a number of seconds if he doesn't have teleport available.
Extremely fancy wall clip. Whee! That one's actually a lot harder than it looks. Alright, and then now I am walking through a procedural dungeon. This is actually the only dungeon I know of where the procedural tiles have multiple possible exits. So this is the only time that I am actually cosplaying a D2 runner, and we happen to have gotten a very linear layout here, which is quite pleasing. The difference between a good and a bad dungeon is around 35 seconds at the very worst. So there's not too much time to be saved here. Now we're going to fight the Cannibal King, Broll. Hi, Broll. Bye, Broll. Teleport itself has a very, very high lucky hit chance. To explain a bit of the mathematics behind lucky hit that we've been sort of gesturing at, lucky hit is, you can think of it as being a type of critical hit that exists in the game, where hits have a certain chance to be lucky, and then when a hit is lucky, the game looks at all of the table of possible lucky modifiers you can have, and looks at and rolls the dice for each one of them individually. So each different spell that I have in the game has a certain chance of intrinsically being lucky. Let's take a spell, for example, that has a 50% chance of being lucky. Then Elemental Surge has a 40% chance beyond that of applying, so an overall 20% chance of happening when I use that spell. The spell that I'm using for the most part to do all of my lucky hit proccing is my basic spell. It has a 40% chance. And then with the elixir that I'm running and a few other passive modifiers, the total net endgame chance of having a lucky hit happen when I use Firebolt is between 29 and 31%, depending on my specific items. during the speedrun. I want boots. Give me boots, you dork.
And there's the legendary treasure goblin.
Please. Please. I just want boots. Please.
Unfortunately, no boots.
In any case, teleport itself is by far the best mobility spell in the game. I was actually doing some testing this morning when we were doing sort of audio and technical checks before my run. I had thought that Soar on the newly introduced class, the Spiritborn, was actually exactly equivalent in its mobility range, and it turns out it is not. Neither is the Hunter. So far as I can tell, Spiritborn will not quite challenge for the crown of fastest speedrun character in the game, so there is still a kingdom for someone else. It's the best offensive class, it's the best defensive class, in the endgame it's the fastest, it has the most attention on social media, it has the coolest outfits, it has the best theme, but it is not, so far as I can tell, the fastest for campaign speedrunning. But that may be wrong as I learn more about the character and as Matt B. Games and Crippy and Vitruth and everyone else continues to work on the low-level strategy for it. There are a couple of these fancier wall clips that are just inaccessible to every other character class except for Sorcerer at the moment, though there may be slightly different modified lineups that make things easier here. So we've now prevented the summoning of Andariel, and we've met the woman Thaisa, who was going to be the conduit for Andariel's resummoning. Andariel was going to sort of possess her and take over her body. We rescued Thaisa, and now we've found out through that interaction with Thaisa that she knows where Elias's fortress is. It's on the other side of this sandstorm, which is blocking out this region of the map here. We're going to go ahead and go over there, but not before we meet Mashif. Mashif is a callback character to Diablo 2, a sailor who takes you between Act 2 and 3 in that game, a sort of a drunken comic relief type character in this game. It's unfortunate, in my mind actually, that Mashif shows up in this game because it's intended to be a nod, an Easter egg, something to appreciate if you're a player who's been playing Diablo 2 for the last 20 years and you're trying out Diablo 4. Unfortunately, we do revisit the city that he sails us to in Diablo 2, and I don't know about you, but Kurast doesn't exactly look like something I can sail to on this map. In any case, this is Mashif. He's going to be our guide through the sandstorm. We're going to meet him at the chapel over here. We find him in an opium den, and when we kick him to wake him up, his response is, "Huh? I'm paid up." And then when we ask him to guide us through the sandstorm, we will get a gleeful response that he's so excited to do this. He's going to he's going to address Lorath by the wrong name. Lorath, like I said, is this game's wise old companion character, and one of the most beloved characters in fantasy RPGs in general, and of course in Diablo in particular, is the previous wise old companion character, the all-knowing font of wisdom, Deckard Cain.
But her screams are only a whisper now.
This is holy ground. Her influence will be weaker here.
So now I will have an opportunity to upgrade my weapons, because I am going to do something very funny in this next sequence. Mashif is going to guide us through the sandstorm, but I've run through this sandstorm at last count around 350 times. I know my way through it. So I'm supposed to follow Mashif, who is going to show up on the ground right here in front of this little Y-shaped fork, right where I'm standing. And then he's going to offer to guide us through the sandstorm. We'll need to take refuge from the winds when they kick up in a couple of places, but Mashif will just be walking to different alcoves. I don't need to stay with Mashif, though. I can just leave, and I can go all the way ahead to the next alcove, make a beeline for it, and then I can do more item upgrading and stuff in town. Now that I'm a bit stronger and I have better items, I'll be able to upgrade things without doing that at all. So right now, Mashif is happily wandering through a sandstorm, bobbling on as though we're standing next to him, and I'm all the way back in Kyovashad on the completely different side of the continent, talking to the blacksmith to see if he can give me something. I don't want to forge equipment. I want to upgrade this item, please. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and apply Elemental Surge here. That is a bad roll, bad enough that I will re-roll it. We're just looking for anything above about 1600. That'll do. I don't have an offhand at the moment, but that's actually okay. We're going to upgrade this ring as well, because this ring is absolutely obscene for its attack speed bonus. That is fine as well. I'll go ahead and take that. This is good. We'll take this as well. Thank you. Meanwhile, as I'm doing all of this, Mashif is just happily wandering through the sandstorm here as well. So I do have to get back there in time or else we will run into a bug. So I'll do some more chores later on.
So as you can see, that temper that Crimson just added was over 30% plus additive damage. As I mentioned before, additive damage also increases elemental surge. The best rolls that you're getting are just a fraction of that, around 10% at most around this level. So tempering is way more important than finding good affixes on an item.
So in this interaction, Mashif, who is a very drunken fellow, is very excited to have found random alcohol on the floor and drinks it immediately. He offers some to Lorath. Lorath in the last 30 minutes has wised up a bit. Now I'm going to do something very important that will involve some crowd interaction here. I need to change my outfit. You guys will just have to vote by shouting. Should I wear, like, this armor? Okay, this is option 1. This look. Okay? Or should I wear... Oops. My character... I died in the alcove. God. I didn't even know they could path into the alcove. That's crazy. We'll have to go back to outfits later. Notice I'm still ahead of Mashif, though. That's actually nuts. I've never seen that happen. It costs 0 time, but also... What?
Embarrassing.
All right. Cool. I'll just go ahead and wear the first outfit.
Your hardcore run is over.
My hardcore... Matt B games in that situation would be like the run is over. For me, in the categories that I run. I have run hardcore before, as I attempted for world record unification. But hardcore is not my home for exactly that kind of reason. I'd be doing a silly thing on stage to get some crowd participation, and then I go ahead and die to a fly. Good. I'm going to go kill, like, an archdemon herself. I did fly from California into DC on election day to kill Hatred. Go vote. Where's my... Go vote. But, of course, for some reason, even though I can defeat the primordial manifestation of Hatred itself, I can't kill, like, a swarm of flies.
Well, you can. It's just you let them kill you.
I was too fashion obsessed. When I'm not a Diablo 4 speedrunner, I am currently a PhD student in physics, but before that I actually was a tailor and personal stylist in New York, so I guess it makes sense that I'm a bit fashion obsessed, even in Diablo speedrunning. Alright, this is Isabel. Isabel the camel is precious cargo. Our Paragon points admitted for this run asks Cats A in the chat. I'm not going to get anywhere close. I'm not going to get anywhere close to level 60 in this run. In some of the other leveling categories, it will be allowed. Rules for Diablo 4 speedrunning are very, very democratically decided. Things are just whoever shows up in the Discord and has a strong enough opinion can start a conversation about whatever you'd like. For many of the other categories that are yet to be introduced, like the aforementioned 1 to Uber Lilith speedrun, I'm not exactly sure what the rules will be. That's still something that we need to discuss as a community. If you want to get involved in Diablo 4 speedrunning and you have an opinion on whether or not we should allow some or none or all Paragon points to carry over into those late game leveling categories, please go to speedrun.com, look up the Diablo 4 leaderboards, find the link to the Discord that's there, and hop right in. I would love to have more people involved in the community, and those sorts of questions, if you have personal opinions or questions, I would love to talk to you. Vytruth as well. All of the moderators there and all of the speedrunners are very, very friendly and happy to share strategies. It's a very, very open and friendly community. But that's a very good question, Cats.
For sure, for sure. Also, there's a forum. So if you have a question, it's not constantly checked, but if you add yourself to the Diablo 4 speedrun Discord channel, there is almost always somebody around that can at least comment on your question, if not answer it outright.
Yeah. I will say, right now, the sort of guiding philosophy that's dominated the sort of rules decisions here is that we want to vaguely imitate what a new player playing the first time would experience. You, of course, have noticed that I did collect my renown experience, for example, and that's not something a first-time player would be able to do. But that also we want to provide things that are the sorts of categories that people want to run. So right now we don't have anything like leaderboards for Pit 150s, or last season there were a small handful of people interested in us putting up leaderboards for the Infernal Hordes Tier 8 clear and things like that. I'm personally perfectly happy to add any category that has easily enforceable rules where there's enough interest. So, of course, I'm not the only moderator. I'm, in fact, not even a super moderator of the category. But in general, if you want to run it and you have clearly enforceable rules and enough interest, we'll try to add it for you. We would love to have more people running, so if you have fun ideas for categories, please let us know.
A lot of categories are actually specifically like the pit tier are actually currently being monitored by different channels. So if there is another venue for you to run those types of runs, like the pit clear or like last season's Infernal Hordes Tier 8, you know, that's usually something that we allow the other channels to do, the other websites to do. But you know, if it's a new category like the one to Uber Lilith Torment 4 category that we're discussing right now, is you know, if that comes up and there isn't another venue for that to really be held, then we're very likely to add it as soon as we get you know, at least one good completed run. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna make a horrible joke. So you're in fact saving the audience. Don't worry, continue.
Yeah.
You're saving the audience from another just absolutely terrible overworld dialogue pun.
No, I love the puns. I love the puns. So. Crimson is known for his puns.
What can I say? I love pun-ishing demons.
Oh, there you go.
So this is Elias. He's one of the big bads of the entire run. Just so you know, I did not get a lucky hit at any point in that combat. He's just that weak. Congratulations. We made progress against the big bad evil.
Blood petals.
Like I said, these symbols that you're seeing on the floor here of blood petals are a sign
Lilith thinks the prime evils
that Lilith has been here, and as a reminder,
and she's empowering people to
Mother loves you.
That's why she and Elias are gathering followers. Building a bloody army.
I love it.
Thank you to everyone who helped with the shoe sign. That art that's on this side of the sign right here is from Zia the Sunflower. She helped me draw that symbol yesterday.
How are you still alive?
You will never understand what I have done for this world.
So back to the question about other categories. Generally, well, as you can see, Crimson just took out Elias again,
We can't keep
which is
bashing our heads
hilarious, and you're going to find out more about that soon. But
We need to
other
escape.
categories, generally,
Not
if
without the
the
sacrifice.
category would allow you
If we can
to
take
level
it,
over
that'll rob them
60,
of some power at
or
least.
previously it was 50, Paragon points at first were banned, then they were allowed, specifically during the Fallen Temple, the first couple runs of that, which I think I was the only one who actually submitted completed runs. I think maybe Iggy also might have done.
I submitted run, but it was after patch.
Gotcha. Yeah, during the initial runs of that, before Elemental Surge was really a thing,
Where did he find this?
obviously we were getting into the Paragon Point territory, and we allowed that. So I would assume that if we do the one to Lilith category, that Paragon Points definitely will be allowed.
And that is Elias. As a bit of foreshadowing, can any of you name any like fantasy magic franchise where there's an antagonist who's like a tall, pale guy with a sunken-in nose that like can't die because of any magical artifacts? Because I just described Elias. Those are all facts that describe Elias.
We need to stop the bleeding.
So just think about that. We have now hit level 23, and I have unlocked Enlightenment. Enlightenment is a very complicated key passive. From your perspective, just know that it actually rewards something that wasn't previously rewarded. Enlightenment is new to the skill tree this season. It exists to reward what I refer to as like rainbow or mosaic builds. Previously, most sorcerers would invest heavily in one element. You'd be an ice sorcerer, or a fire sorcerer, or a lightning sorcerer. And there were a couple of builds where you would hybridize between two of those, but this absolute mess of a skill tree bar that I have that is super specialized for low-level build running and for campaign running in particular is completely impractical until Enlightenment exists. Enlightenment means that when I use spells of different types, I build up charges. When I get 100 charges, I get a temporary buff. Importantly, it's a buff to attack speed and mana regeneration. The mana economy in this game is really, really terrible in the early game, and it's one of the primary ways of providing progression throughout the run. As you level up to level 60 and get into the Paragon boards, you get stronger and stronger, and you find items that help with that mana resource generation. It's the only major source of mana resource generation that we're going to get in this speedrun are those Enlightenment stacks, and those let me spam a few of my stronger spells a bit more readily. But in the meantime, I want to show you guys something that most people don't notice at all during the speedrun. I'm going to walk in here. I need to find Donan. Donan's going to be saying stuff. If I run past him, you may notice God himself is in the church. And for some reason, the campaign doesn't force you to notice that. If you don't walk deep into the church there, you won't see that. So most players on their first-time playthrough do not realize that Inarius, the father of humankind, the creator of Sanctuary, is in there and is actually giving a very long and very well voice-acted sermon about the specific strategic military plans that he and the Cathedral of Light have to confront Hell itself later on. It's a really, really good piece of dialogue. It's a wonderful piece of world building, but it isn't railroaded into you, and so a lot of people run straight past it. But I do love that, like I said, the creation deity of the world is just hanging out right next to us, and it's entirely possible to not notice. Now we're going to come in here, and we're in what's called Act 4 right now. We had one where we worked with Neyrel in the mines, we had one where we worked with Donan in Skazglin, and now we have one where we're gathering them all up. These two characters need to come and meet with us and Lorath. You're going to lose game dialogue for a moment as I tab over here and refresh the tab I have going so I can read Twitch chat and see my timer.
Before Lorath marches up to her.
So here we are in the Horadric Vault. The lone two members of the Horadrim are Donan and Lorath. This is the source, this is sort of the library of all magical wisdom in the world. One of a couple of great mage orders that have existed historically here. Right, so you can hear that ringing sound. You can see these charges counting down. Right now I have buffed attack speed from my ultimate ability as well as from that key passive, and things are going to help there a lot. I remember the first time that I speedran this game, I really looked up to the runner who held all the world records at launch, a guy named Gymnasium, who's a really incredibly skillful Diablo 2 speedrunner. And I watched the recording of a couple of his speedruns, and the first time I made my own discovery in speedrunning, a sensation that completely addicted me to running the campaign, was actually in this room. Later on, Donan, who we're escorting through here as he gathers some materials to help us in the next part of the fight, he's going to come in here, he's going to read this book, and then the developers intend for us to wait for him to open a door that's right here. Well, we could run around instead of waiting for him to open the door, or I could teleport straight through. Now, that's not a particularly difficult wall clip. It's, in fact, the easiest one. You have a straight line of sight. You can see exactly where to put your mouse. It's easy on both controller and mouse and keyboard. But it was the first one I found myself. And when I found it, the shock of excitement that it actually worked, because I personally didn't understand teleport mechanics very well at the time, was an overwhelming feeling of excitement. And there are still a lot of those left to be discovered. I am absolutely certain that there's particular dungeons in this run that I just haven't had time to test extensively, that I know that Matt and Crippy and a few of the other campaign runners haven't looked at themselves either. So if you want to have that experience for yourself, I can tell you where the homework is, you can go and do it, and the discoveries are there for the taking, and then you can name the wall clip. You can give us a name. That one doesn't have a fancy name. I suppose you could call it Crimson Clip if you feel like flattering me. In any case, we've now gathered our allies. Our strategy is twofold. One, we need to figure out exactly what Elias is up to and resolve the issue of his immortality, which we don't know much about yet. And two, we need to create a soul stone. We need to prep it and attune it to hatred so we can kill Lilith. But in the meantime, there's a cutscene there, and here's Andariel. And Andariel is going to take a very, very long time for us to kill until we get lucky hits, at which point she's going to die rather quickly. Andariel is one of the 7 great evils in the world. She has 2 fixed phases, so we have gotten the fastest possible Andariel kill, and there, she's dead. She has a very long death throw animation. And then hopefully we get a legendary there, we get a legendary chest armor and hit level 25. Let's see if this chest armor is an upgrade. It is.
As a reminder, level 25 is the other big level for us to hit in order to imprint imprint the legendary powers onto her equipment.
Yes, it turns out that because in the second half of the game, we're now entering sort of what I would consider the final third. There are not a whole lot of blacksmiths sort of directly in your line of sight. Going out of your way to imprint anything takes around 30 seconds away from the main path, and there's so little time left, and there are so few legendary aspects that can really save us more than a couple % on our pace, that it doesn't tend to be worth it in most late game campaign runs to go out of your way to imprint things at the blacksmith. That said, this is still an active area of discovery, like a lot else in Diablo 4 speedrunning, so I wouldn't be surprised to find out that there's some new legendary exploit later on in the run where when you hit level 25 at that Andariel fight, you end up finding out that applying something like Moonrise for its offensive potential or some new mobility aspect that's introduced in a future patch may really change things here. Because it's a live server,
already have the basic attack speed aspect, then
Exactly. Now I'm going to do, in the next couple of minutes here, I'm going to do 2 of the funniest wall clips in the entire speed run. Whoops. One, which was discovered by Matt B. Games, is absolutely hilarious to me. The campaign is in some sense the tutorial for the game, and so it intends to teach you things. Like if you look at my mini-map right now, you see that little white sort of diamond-shaped marker right here? That indicates that there's something for me to climb over. And the game introduces more and more of those over the campaign routing. So I'm pretty sure its developer intended that it's sort of, okay, you find the first one by accident. Oh, okay, I start looking at my mini-map and recognizing what that symbol is. And then it gives us a single area where there is an absolute flood of jump and climb obstacles. Jump over this gap, climb up this wall, climb down the next wall, do this thing, do that thing. And it takes a whole bunch of time, but it really cements to the player that when you look at the mini-map and see that symbol, that there's some sort of overworld obstacle that you can interact with. And those are very important to the game and its immersion and its dungeon design, but it's really annoying for us to have to do all of those back to back to back to back. Not only because it's just not very fun in general, but because I'm a speedrunner and I'm trying to go fast. So Matt B. Games discovered the single funniest wall clip in the entire game. The developer intended route is that I'm going to climb around the perimeter of this castle and then climb up on the roof and then climb down the other side and then fight a mob of skeletons and then clip through the entire thing. Or I can stand between these 2 trees, put my mouse on this plaque, and trip all the way through and save a minute and a half.
Hey.
That is not my discovery. It's also not particularly hard to line up because that crack is so well placed in the wall for where you should put your mouse, but it is one of the funnier ones in illustrating just how silly some of the routing would be. In general Diablo dungeons, because again, all maps are procedurally generated outside of the campaign, you would never have any reason to do that. By the way, if you play Diablo and you want to learn a little bit more about the background of the world, come to Rakat Keep, the overworld region where I am right now, and click on these and enjoy the art and learn the lore and look up the wiki and learn a little bit more about who Sankekor was. there's a lot of art in the game that isn't shown off. Like I said earlier in the game, there's a campaign-only region that has a lot of those tapestries and paintings and other such similar things. But there are a few in the overworld, and that's one of them where you can learn more about this place, which is the Black Tomb of Sankekor. Now, one of the big differences post-patch for Season 6, which is the current season, is that the level scaling appears to have changed in Hawazar. The design intent of the campaign is that you can do the first 3 acts in any order, then the campaign braids itself together and you do 4, 5, 6 in order after that. So the idea was that you'd end at something like level 45 or 50. We're not going to get quite there because I am speedrunning, but in previous patches, the game had dynamic level scaling with a twist. Every region would be your level or some threshold level, whichever was higher. And Hawazar, the little region of the map that we entered just now, had an area entry level of 35. And before this patch, I would typically be entering it at something like level 19. Consequently, I would run in here, everything would be incredibly strong, and I would be very weak, and it would be a very frightening time in the campaign. It seems to me like it probably still is level 35 as regions go, but it's not well labeled anymore. They changed some of the things in the heads-up display, and consequently we don't really know if that's the case. But it is something to note that the game starts out very, very easy because I'm level 1 with all of these mature account modifiers where I have extra skill points and bonus base stats, and I have all these other systems open to me. And as I get farther and farther into the campaign, the fact that I'm underleveled becomes more and more germane to the difficulty of the speedrun, where in the beginning it's all about finding these movement optimizations and being able to sight read the dungeons. Now I'm going to do something a bit interesting here. There's a long overworld dialogue scene that happens right there. If I put the shoulder of my horse into it, that dialogue scene starts. And for some reason, the audio cue of me collecting that waypoint there cuts off the rest of the conversation, and I can come back and suddenly a half-hour conversation is over in 30 seconds. We're going to find out that the Witch of the Tower might have the Quicksilver we need to repair the Soulstone. So we come over here, and Thaisa? What? You're the Witch of the Tower?
Hey, Crimson, we got a donation to read out.
Okay.
It says, good luck, Crimson. You got this. From Kirsef.
Oh, thank you, Kirsef. Kirsef is a childhood friend of mine.
And why would I?
Thank you, Kier. Now, as I run through here, I do want to recap. So we just broke into Thaisa's home, and before that we broke into the Necropolis of the Firstborn, which is Rotham's home, and before that we broke into the Carver's house, which is Genbar's home, and before that we broke into Lorath's house, which is Lorath's home. So I'm really starting to think that the writers have only one plot idea and not much self-awareness, that the only way for us to gather any information about anything is to break into people's houses. Because here I am into breaking into someone's houses yet again for, what's that, the 8th time in the campaign? You'd think the writers would be more self-aware.
There's no warrants in Sanctuary.
Okay, so they are self-aware. Yes, I do have a habit of sneaking into other people's homes. You would think, as the authors of the campaign, you would be more self-aware about that. All right, so now I'm going to gather all of these weapons that dropped on the ground, and I'm going to walk over here and be a very unsupportive friend. What? We just got rapid again. It doesn't stack so far as I am aware, but, like, I'm getting the craziest item RNG, except I can't find boots. So what's going to happen over here is Donan, this mage, is going to try and repair this artifact, the Soulstone, and we're going to give him all the materials to do so, and then as he tries to do it, we're just going to run away. The other thing that I find interesting about this little sequence here is that he tells us to put the Quicksilver in the vault, and then when he asks us to mix the Quicksilver, we go over to these bottles. So the Quicksilver's here, but we mix this Quicksilver? I don't really understand. In any case, while Donan is doing that, I'm going to run over here and take the free weapon upgrade that I just got.
Fun story, Quicksilver is Mercury.
I'll take it.
Also, for anybody wondering, Rapid is the attack speed to basic attacks.
And it is one of 2 S-tier possible modifiers. Like, it is absolutely cracked as an option for us. By the way, production, if you're still in my ear, can you just confirm, I checked before the run started, we did in fact hit my incentive modifier to remove all my armor, right? Yes? Okay, good. that is going to come up quickly here. Two things are about to happen which are very lore important, just deeply, incredibly lore important to appreciating the speedrun. We're going over here. Donan failed to repair the Soulstone, partially because he's having a crisis of confidence. He feels like he didn't protect the people of Skosglen from Astaroth. He feels like he betrayed his son by not being a sufficiently supported father, and that crisis of confidence meant that he was unable to weave the magics necessary to prepare the Soulstone. If you want more of an explanation of why exactly that works that way, come by my stream sometime. We'll do a full lore playthrough. But in the meantime, we're going to come here, where we're going to do something incredibly important. We're going to kill the Maggot Queen. The Maggot Queen is just an elite. We're gathering some materials to make drugs, frankly. We're going to go on an ayahuasca journey and discover our true selves. But we're going to gather two things. One is Yellow Lotus, and the other one is Maggot Queen Ichor. An important thing to note here is that killing the Maggot Queen is an inciting incident for something much later in the campaign that Vitruth may be chuckling to himself about right now. The other thing is that we're about to visit a vision of Travancore, and Travancore in this vision will look exactly like it does in Diablo 2, and nothing at all like it does when we visit it again in the expansion of Diablo 4. So I'm a bit confused. Does Travancore look like Travancore, or does Travancore not look like Travancore? I don't know what's supposed to be happening there. In any case, this is also an opportunity for me to explain something quite funny about the pathing in this game. My goodness. You may notice that the camera is not pointing directly straight down. And what that means is that the top corners of the game are slightly farther from my character than the bottom corners of my game. So the distance from my character to here, up in the top left, is higher than the distance from my character to the bottom left, if that makes sense. Because it's just tilted farther away due to the camera parallax, right? What that ends up meaning is that I can teleport slightly farther away if I'm teleporting up the map instead of down the map. This is an extremely insignificant effect. I have measured it repeatedly, but it saves about half a meter of travel distance per teleport. Teleport is off cooldown roughly every 12 seconds, so it is about a 0.5% modifier to our overworld movement speed if we can figure out more ways to go up instead of sideways or down. Now we're going to talk to Tysa, we're going to light the braziers, and we're going to visit a vision of Travancore. This is actually going to be the second place where I get to do one of my favorite speedrun strategies. We're going to have a cutscene. Please ignore that Tysa's staff is on her back, but she's holding nothing in front of her. We're going to have this cutscene. I'm going to wake up on the floor, and I can use my evade to get up faster without the groggy, slow climb up out of my stupor animation. The way that that speedrun strategy was discovered, which saves around half a second every time that I do it, was actually that I read a YouTube comment that said to Kano, who is a Diablo 2 player who was playing during open access, someone was like, why don't you use your evade to cancel that? And I was like, that's possible? So I discovered that with a 9-month-old YouTube comment, like a year after the game's release. It was absolutely incredible to me that that worked that way. By the way, this is Travancore. Notice, like, the ritual pits are in the correct place, the braziers are in the correct place, the tile on the floor is correct, the filigree and raised edges are correct, the little place where you fight the Fell Council in Diablo 2 is correct. If any of you don't play Diablo, you have no idea what I'm ranting about. But this looks just like Diablo 2 Travancore. And then the expansion came out, and we importantly revisit Travancore, and it doesn't look like this. So I thought that the nostalgia bait was going to be fulfilled, but it wasn't. In any case, this is Mephisto, the Lord of Hatred. He's trying to convince us to ally with him instead of our actual allies. We're not going to fall for it. And now we're going to open the meaty flaps of this door. They make an uncomfortable and visceral sound every time we interact with them, which is the #1 reason that I hate Mephisto. It's not the hatred, it's not the dominion of hell, it's not the demons he summons to fight us. It's the fact that these doors make this ugly, gross, gushy sound.
Moist.
Thank you. Thank you, Vitruth. Now, like, the audio designer who made that sound, the Foley artist, whoever it was, great work. It's supposed to be disgusting, but also, Jesus, man. Please.
I don't know yet.
So now we're going to talk to Donan, and you may have noticed if you're extremely eagle-eyed, the last time we mixed the quicksilver, then we turned the fire 3 times, then we stirred the herbs, and this time we're only going to turn the fire twice, and that's going to make the difference. So now he is going to do this. We're going to walk outside, and he is going to prepare the soulstone. Remember that white quest marker thing I said about teleporting earlier? Go ahead and look at these on the map. You'll see those white dots. When they despawn, I am going to be able to teleport. So that is the world's most obscure campaign speedrunning mechanic. Before today, there were only 2 people in the world who knew it. All right, so now I'm going to be going down here. We have done our drugs for therapy purposes. Donan is fixed. World's most efficient psychiatry trip. And now we're going to come down here and do drugs recreationally. So the first thing that we did was go in there, we gathered the Yellow Lotus, we gathered the Maggot Queen Ichor, we took the tincture, we took a journey through the swamp, and Donan's trauma about being a bad father and losing his son has been resolved. Now we have to come down here, and we have the Soulstone tuned, but Elias is still immortal, so we have to go talk to the old hag of the swamp, whose name is Timue. Timue is going to tell us to go and smoke some snake venom, and we're going to come over here. In the meantime, there's wonderful overworld dialogue where we get character development where Neyrelle is very inquisitive and annoying toward Lorath, and Lorath is very dismissive toward her because she's an annoying teenager, implying that they've spent a bunch of time together off screen that we weren't there for. So, like I said, Act 5 that we're in right now has the 2 most important wall clips in all of speedrunning. That enormous time save, discovered by Matt B, where you clip through the wall and save 1.5 minutes instead of climbing over the roof. The next one saves 0.4 seconds if executed optimally, and took me a week of solid practice to figure out a consistent lineup for. So that sort of tells you over the last 8 months or so, as a handful of us have really been working on the routing, that we've gotten the times down from about 4 hours to about 2 hours 50, 3 hours, something like that for good runs, and for world record class runs, something like 2 hours 35. All of that development has happened as we discovered more and more niche and smaller time saves. And this next one that you're going to see in a second is a demonstration of that. Right now I need to do is get into the Snake Temple, though, so I can kill Molon, the Snake Queen. I need to get the eyes that go into the front of this temple, like, carving over here. They're always in exactly the same places, and so I can just go and collect that one directly, and then now I have to go up here and kill 3 small snakes and a big snake, and then collect it from a bandit who stole it. In the meantime, I am running past all of this experience. The current patch is so different for experience farming, 3 small snakes and a big snake, thank you, that I am now actually going to avoid all overworld experience from this point on. I am actually going to deliberately try to not level up. Partially, that is because it's faster to not take combat, and the other thing is a subtle mathematical point. Because I have a mature account with fully farmed Renown, I get extra skill points. When I'm level 1 and I have 13 extra skill points compared to where I should, I'm extremely strong compared to where I expect to be at level 1, because 13 is a lot bigger than 1. But when I get later and later into the game, that advantage proportionally becomes weaker and weaker and weaker, because 62 is not as much of an advantage over 50 as 13 is over 1. So in order to preserve as much of that overskill experience as I possibly can, that wall clip saves 0.3 of a second and is incredibly difficult to line up consistently. So in order to preserve as much of that over-level experience as I possibly can from those skill points, because everything is dynamically scaling to my level, I want to be as I want to be as under-leveled as possible, so that way the proportional advantage of having a mature account is larger. All right, now we're going to go ahead and get down into Molon's Den. Molon's Den is like the #1 place where annoying things can slow me down by attacking me. So again, I'm going to be popping my ultimate here. You may think, Eric, you have a boss fight about to come up there, and I'm going to go, how did you know my name was Eric? But also, I have this boss fight coming up. I have a really long cooldown on my ultimate, but this boss actually has extremely low HP to the point where it's like aberrantly low compared to some of the other bosses at this point in the campaign. but consequently I'm able to use my ultimate here just to avoid the slowdown from these flies. The other thing is that there are some things in this room that should stun me, like that, and it's possible to dodge them, even though it doesn't actually affect anything at all. Like I said, that that boss has very, very low HP there. Now we're going to climb back up here, and we have dried snake venom, the mystic snake incense, and we're going to take it over to an altar in the swamp and smoke it. And then we're going to go on a vision quest together. It's going to be very fun, everybody. You may have noticed that I just failed a teleport there. That's actually for the same reason as the quest not allowing me to use Town Portal. I was in the quest advancement state and not in the stable world state, so it cancels all of my mobility, including teleport. Really weird. Doesn't do anything, just interesting game mechanic. So now we're going to come over here and interrupt yet another interesting lore conversation between Lorath and Neyrelle. We're going to run over here, and we're going to do drugs in the swamp for the second time.
Here Solid is reminding us that a world boss is in this box.
Well, don't worry. I am going to fight a world boss pretty soon here anyways.
Light the incense.
Now, much hay is made of this particular next sequence. We're going to, like I said, light the snake incense. It's going to cause us to see visions here, and we will see this giant snake. Now, I want to go ahead and put a bounty on this here. This snake quest, along with the camel quest, are extremely slow. There's lots of places where I literally need to stand around and wait for NPCs to do things. So I'm going to go ahead and put a $1,000 bounty on anyone who can replicate TTC up, or I mean anyone who can find a way to skip the snake or camel quests. I don't actually have $1,000. I just wanted to make a joke. In any case, we're going to go ahead and do this here. It's unclear whether or not this is intended, but it is entirely possible that this snake is an obscure piece of Diablo lore, the legendary snake, the world protector, Trag'Oul. So it's not explicitly named, but if you're like a deep lore appreciator like me, then you may have the hypothesis that this is a deliberate reference to some flavor text from earlier in the franchise, where somehow when Anarius and Lilith used the World Stone to create the world of Sanctuary, co-created or pre-existing that somehow was a snake which wrapped around the planet and protects it somehow. It's really ambiguous. What's interesting actually is that Trag'Oul is spelled two different ways in two different places, so it's unclear, like it would be in some real-life mythologies, what exactly is the correct. Is it Nero Caesar or Neron Caesar? Is it Trag'Oul or Trang'Oul? Who knows? It's spelled different ways by different historians within the world itself. It's part of the reason that I appreciate the sort of hodgepodge nature of Diablo's flavor text and lore. It feels very much like real life, where different historians have disagreements about what actually happened, where there are unreliable narrators, where different cultures have different values, where there's all this conflict and none of it's linear and all of it's messy. So I said early on in the run that I would prefer a pair of one-hand weapons to a single two-handed weapon, and it would take an extraordinary drought for me to want to switch back to a two-handed weapon. That drought has in fact occurred. We're starting to have really, really bad item RNG, but that's okay. It makes the run interesting, and it's one of the reasons that the campaign is so replayable, because you're really hunting for a lot of those things here. So what's ended up happening is I haven't found an offhand item since Act 1, in fact, and that means that I don't have anything that can be modified at the blacksmith. There are some complicated lucky hit mathematical reasons about independent probability rolls for all of my lucky hit modifiers that mean that I want two sources of lucky hit, elemental surge, that big flat bonus damage that we apply at the blacksmith. But since I can't do that, that modifier, when I apply it to a two-handed weapon, instead of getting better probability of it applying, I actually get it to be twice as strong. So the flat damage bonus is going to be twice as strong as it otherwise would be.
As a reminder, Lucky Hit is, in the most simplest way to explain, is a crit of a crit. So you have a chance of a percent chance to get the proc. So it's gonna have a one instance of it. You want the bigger damage out of it, even if it's going to let you attack a couple more times.
Yeah, in most runs, by the way, you end up having to make this decision. Would I rather have one big dice or two small ones? And in fact, world records have been run in different speedrun categories both ways, just depending on the item RNG. It's part of the knowledge that's necessary to have a really great... it's part of the knowledge that's necessary to speedrun the game well, the ability to make these on-the-fly decisions based on your understanding of the underlying item roll probabilities and so on and so forth. So it's not actually that unusual that I'm staring at this staff and going, you know, maybe. World records have been run in campaign speedrunning with a two-handed weapon, even though the ideal case is two one-handed weapons. It's just not that likely for us to get two different items that pair together well. At one point I did the math for like, what would perfect RNG be like just for Act 1, the first roughly 35 minutes of the run in a 3-hour category? What would be the probability of getting perfect yellow boots and getting the correct weapon and getting the perfect modifier and getting perfect rolls on all of the jewelry and this and that and the perfect map RNG and everything else? And I stopped when the number reached 10 to the 14. So the perfect run will never happen. When people look at other runs that involve RNG, like for example some frame-perfect trips involving sub-pixel positions in early SNES and NES Mario games, those people have just absolutely wonderful odds compared to what Diablo speedrunning has in many situations. Now, that RNG is much more impactful than this has. I need to remember to get the waypoint here. This is the most common mistake I make, which is forgetting to... Oh my god, would the horse get off of the wall, please? Thank you. So what we just...
sharp.
Say that again?
Corners are sharp.
It's true. It's true. I think it's just a turn radius problem. Like, I genuinely would love to talk to a developer about this, because I think that there are some parameters that could be changed that would make the horse feel better, but I would need to understand more about the underlying code first. In any case...
I've managed to get the horse actually stuck in a wall before.
Oh, that's...
Because he couldn't turn.
Oh, you can clip the horse through the floor in a number of places. It's great. It's a delightful thing. Every bug I've found, none of them are speedrun viable. In any case, as I continue to run here, what we've discovered from Team Away is that we get the Snake Incense, and the Snake Incense guides us to the legendary and fabled Tree of Whispers. The Tree of Whispers is a mystical entity of its own, outside of either angelic or demonic magic, and it offers a deathly bargain. I will give you the knowledge you seek from now to the end of the earth. I will reveal any secret to you, so long as when you die, your head comes here and joins the chorus of voices. So if you're willing to give up your head, you can do that. Now, we offer the tree a different bargain. The Tree of Whispers was tricked by Elias, that dark mage from earlier. He said, if you will tell me how to find Rothma's temple under the sea, then I will give you my head at the end of life. He, of course, neglected to mention that in Rothma's temple was the secret to immortality, and that he intended to never come to the Tree of Whispers. So when we discovered this from Team Away, and from the tree itself, we say, we won't give you our heads, but we will make you whole on that ledger if you will tell us the same secret. And the tree is willing to make that deal. So we talked to a tree full of severed heads, and we found out that we need to come over here, and we need to climb a coffin. That was like the greatest 5-way lucky hit I have absolutely... What? Someone in chat, what is 6 to the 5th?
Go on ahead to the coffee.
That's something like 7,000 or 8,000, right?
That is 7,700.
Yeah, okay. So that's like, that was an absolutely unbelievable 5-way lucky hit on all of those guys.
The edge of our sight. The limit of
7776? Yeah, it was crazy. Now...
Well, Crimson, as you enter the coffin, we approach my time that I have to hit and head out, so good luck with the rest of your run. Sorry, I can't stay for the whole time.
I appreciate it.
Unfortunately, we started a little late.
That's all right. I appreciate it very much. If I could get a round of applause for my co-commentator as he has to head out for regular life, I'd appreciate it. So we now go into, like I said, Rothma's temple. This is literally underneath the ocean, I suppose we're sort of like that scene in Pirates of the Caribbean where they're holding the kayak over their head as they go under the water here. It's not exactly clear to me how it's possible to be under the ocean here, but in any case, I want to tell you guys an interesting linguistics fact. In most languages, as I understand it, color words first arise in like Proto-Indo-European, for example, in ancient languages. The first words that show up for colors are just light, dark, and colorful. And then the word for colorful usually becomes the word for red. Like in Proto-Indo-European, it was a word that probably sounded something like rud. In any case, this is the reason that in some ancient Greek myths, the word blue didn't exist yet. So if you read the actual Odyssey, when they're sailing across the ocean, they describe it not as being blue, but as being wine dark. And the reason I bring this up is because if you look in the top right corner of the screen, just beneath my mini-map, you can see that we are beneath the wine dark sea. So that's a reference to some Homeric legends there. A little fun fact for you. As I'm continuing here, the only important thing that you need to know is we're trying to figure out where exactly Voldemort has hidden his Horcrux. I mean, exactly where Elias has hidden his finger, into which he has stored a portion of his soul. So like I said, tall, pale guy, sunken nose, evil wizard, can't be killed. He's just Voldemort light. In any case, as we continue through here, I'm looking for his finger, and we're going to find it over here at the edge of the dungeon. As I'm moving, for the rest of this little portion of the run, all that I'm doing is managing my cooldowns. I am trying to use my evade off cooldown. I am trying to figure out exactly where I can use teleport most efficiently. I'm trying to not embarrassingly miss easy teleport clips. Nobody saw that. It was a bug. It wasn't me. In any case, and now we're going to find his finger here. It's really a finger, by the way. Like, if I look in my inventory, I should be able to find it. They did hit the quest menu, but you can see it there. And now I am going to deliberately drown. Not because it's speedrun strats, but because it's unavoidable. I do not know what that monkey emote that's being spammed in chat is, but I do think it's funny, so thank you for that.
Good. Let us end this then.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and burn that finger in the campfire, and then we're going to have an excruciating instance of needing to wait for NPC there. A Minecraft speedrunner's profile picture. Nice. All right, so this is Narelle. She's lost her arm. Once again, we wait for the little white dots to disappear and then reappear before we teleport over here. We wait, and now we go. Thank you. Lacertus donated $25 with no comment. Thank you to Lacertus, another one of my friends from playing Dota in competitive amateur leagues. Thank you for that, man. I appreciate it.
Speaking for me.
All right, and then now we have hit the portion of the run where things start to get difficult. So we're going to go ahead and have a boss fight with Elias. That itself is not very hard, but then soon I will take off all of my armor as donators have made my life very difficult for me. I'm going to enter into hell, literally hell itself in the game, and I will need to remove all of my armor. If I had good boots, I would make the argument that for movement speed reasons, I really need to keep them on, but I will in fact remove everything, and my armor number here will drop from 199 to 0. So preemptively, I'm going to explain some of the difficult stuff that will happen there. When I first enter hell, I'll go through a big door. I'll tell you when it's happening, and I am going to go down a very long ramp. During that ramp, I will not be able to self-commentate. It just takes too much concentration. What's happening there is there are a number of mobs there, all of which have ways to crowd control me. There are wallers that can trap me with those stone walls we mentioned earlier. There are things that can stun me, freeze me, knock me down. Every single possible different type of crowd control exists at least one place in one of those mobs. Some of them are dodgeable, some of them are not. I have 2 and only 2 defensive utilities to use at that point in the run. One is the skill that's second from left on my wall here, Flame Shield, looks like this, and that will dispel most crowd control effects, and I can preemptively use it to block others. The other one is Teleport. which gives me a defensive status called Unstoppable. When I'm unstoppable, control impairing effects are removed. I am able to move freely, and I get free pathing. All right, and we're going to continue there. So when I'm going down that big ramp, what I am doing is managing my defensive cooldowns and deciding how much risk to take. The mob spawn locations and mob spawn types are different in every single run. So what I'm doing is I'm looking ahead, and if the next mob is a good mob, then I can go ahead and use teleport as a movement spell and save time. If I don't see that it's a good mob, if it's something bad, or if I am not sure yet, then I will have to wait and hold that spell to use it as a defensive resource instead of a mobility resource, which ends up meaning that the run very much comes down to mob spawn RNG there, but also I need to make a series of on-the-fly decisions, and I have about a quarter of a second in a couple of places to be able to do that really, really accurately. By the way, right there, I don't know if you saw him lounging, but Elias is dripped out before we decapitate him to return his head to the Tree of Whispers, which is up here. Let's see what we have by way of items. Okay.
Lilith has been a strange thing.
All right, I am in fact going to go ahead and add that new weapon here. This is a little bit slower. I hope that it saves me some time on one particular boss fight later on. So we're hoping for a really, really good roll here. That's a bad roll. That is a mediocre roll. Come on, give me a good one. That is literally a perfect roll. That has a 1 in 10 chance of happening. Hooray! And now we're going to go and meet up with our allies. So we've resolved the 2 great mysteries. We've prepared the soulstone into which we intend to trap Lilith, the archdemon we've been hunting the entire time. And the second one is that we have dispelled Elias's immortality and slain him. So only one big bad evil remains. It is to kill Lilith and thereby save the world. To do that, we will need to enter into Mephisto's domain. To remind you guys, Mephisto is one of the 3 prime evils in this game. Diablo, totally in this game. It's named Diablo. It's a franchise named Diablo. Diablo's here. We're just skipping him with speedrun strats. In any case, we're going to go ahead and here, we're going to kill Lilith. In the meantime, we're going to see a number of things that fulfill a prophecy that was read to us in the very first cutscene of the entire game. The first one is that blood shall rain on a desert jewel. So we enter into the ancient capital city Chaldeum, and you can see that literally blood is raining.
On the tree with Elias for eternity. Nobody wants that.
I was fine on my own.
All right. So now we have discovered that the Cathedral of Light has in fact beaten us here. And so we are going to have a number of things happen.
You hear that? They mentioned the Lord of Hatred.
All right, and as we continue along here, I am going to show just a little snippet of this cutscene, so you guys have a bit more context for what happens in Hell. I am nowhere near world record pace, and I'll show you just a little bit here. This is Anarius. He is preparing the soldiers of the Cathedral of Light for their direct, full frontal assault on Hell.
Way to the heavens. All is as fate decreed. A spear of light, piercing hatred's heart. You who die in battle today, die heaven-bound. Rally the troops at the palace. We march on Hell. And after that, your plan? The Horadrim. Always chasing after the battles of your betters. But the angels don't need you.
The stone, don't it?
We don't need the bloody angels either.
Alright, so Dad confiscated our toy and ran away with us after being very condescending. So now we don't really have a way to kill Lilith. I guess we'll just have to do it with my bare hands. So now we're going to run in here and meet up with the church officials. The main army has gone ahead of us, and we are going to find a way to to join in on the fun later on. Someone in chat asked sort of, what place is this on pace for? In main category for campaign, Sorcerer is not the most popular class. It has a very high difficulty barrier compared to some of the others, so it's not quite as popular. Also, for vanity reasons, it's not the first one that shows up when you open the Diablo 4 leaderboards. So Necromancer is more popular. On the Sorcerer campaign leaderboards, this is probably on pace for something like 2nd or 3rd pace all time, but it's a very small category with very few runners, so this is not an especially notable run in terms of pace. I hope that that answers the question. Please do not feel bad for me, Jacko. I am very glad for people to be here. I am also very glad to be surrounded by talented speedrunners, including the Minecraft community. I am not at all worried that you guys are spamming chat with fun memes. All right, so as we enter into Chaldeum here, we're going to be clearing a number of mobs. The first couple of mobs here are easy. A number of them have mechanics where we need to kill particular summons. So as I run through here, I'm going to be ignoring most of the mobs, but particular monsters are actually like the set quest marker to advance the campaign quest state. So as a consequence, you'll notice that I ignore a bunch of the small ones and fight only a bunch of the big ones. Next, as I get further in here, this is Uznu. He's going to go ahead and give me a piece of chest armor, which I may put on just for the joke of having it on for 5 seconds. I'm about to cross through a door, which is the main gate to hell. And when I do that, I will, as chat has commanded, remove... Oh my god. No! That's such a nice chest piece. I want to wear it. In any case. So we're going to go ahead and continue here with Prava here. Prava is the leader of the local church. So I'll explain a little bit more about Lilith and Inarius' motives as we get farther into this last arc of the game. So I'm about to enter into hell. I am accompanied by these sort of Gothic Crusader fellows. They're from the Cathedral of Light. They are sort of Inarius' personal cult of personality. He's been misleading them to his own ends, and they don't know that, but we do. Inarius was outcast from heaven as a consequence of the betrayal of creating Sanctuary. Angels in the game, despite being perfect paragons of different and specific moral virtues, look down on humans as abomination on account of our 50% demonic heritage. So, angels aren't a big fan of us, in general, despite the fact that we've saved heaven from invasion multiple times throughout the franchise. In any case, that he has misled them to believe that if they die on his crusade, then they will be able to go to heaven. That is in fact not the case. He wrongly believes that if he quote-unquote sets it right by killing Lilith and destroying humanity, then he himself will be able to rejoin heaven. So his purpose for this is entirely selfish. He wants to go home and hang out with his family, and he's leading in a giant army of people who he's misled to that same end. Lilith, in the meanwhile, alleges that she wants to save humanity and to protect us from the primevals by absorbing their essence, which would of course turn her into the primeval. Alright, just for memes, did we get good boots at the... We got good boots at the absolute last minute as I have to take off all of my armor. I literally will not wear those for 1 second, but they are the best possible boots. Now we're going to go ahead and continue here, and I am about to enter into hell, so I'm going to go ahead and do this. You're welcome, Twitch chat. I do still have a small numerical amount of armor. That is from my base stats and can't be removed, but I have gone ahead and taken off every item that grants me armor in any way.
It's not about me hounding you. It's
Enough. You're both so smart usually.
You'll notice that my companion characters here bicker more and more as we get into hell, and the demonic influences of hatred, destruction, and terror, lies, anguish, pain, and sin corrupt them more and more. It took me a second to remember the 7 evil sins in Diablo.
You're all wrong about that.
Alright, so this is our last interaction with Blood Petals before we enter into Hell. And then, like I said, I'm going to have this complicated ramp interaction where I need to manage the difference between my mobility and my defense. So for about 90 seconds here, I am not going to be saying much as I try really hard to concentrate, and then I will tell you guys when I have made it through the hard bit. The first couple of mobs are looking good so far. That's really bad. Lag is really bad. Oh no, this is a horrible time for lag. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for lag spikes on stage. Appreciate you, Blizzard. Let's try that again. Proves my point that it's hard though. Okay, so that's Fear. That's one of the easier crowd control effects to dodge. You'll notice that these mobs are nothing but crowd control effects, and then these little guys with glowing electric red heads. And those guys are little kamikaze fellows. So the goal of this dungeon design is to stun me and then immediately blow up a bunch of bombs on top of my head. It's really the most annoying thing. We're getting good luck here with stun types. We've gotten Fear, we've gotten Freeze. That is really bad right there. That is really bad. Fear again. And Hellfire. Okay, in principle, I'm done with the hard part. So I will go back to explaining more of the lore here and the speedrun strategies. If you again are like a really hardcore Diablo nerd, you may notice that we're about to cross the way into some Hellfire, and we're going to fight a bunch of Fallen, this monster type here. The Fallen that show up here, one of them has a unique name, Rashibosh, going along with Bishibosh and Rakanishu. He is one of 3 named unique elites that are Fallen in the Diablo franchise, the other ones being in Diablo 2. He's their cousin. The names Rakanishu, Rashibosh, and Bishibosh were inspired by sounds that a very particular Diablo 2 developer made when he sneezed. So it's when that guy sneezed, I guess it sounded like Rakanishu, and they built that into the game to make fun of him forever. The franchise since then has grossed something like $3 billion, and so as a consequence, this guy's sneeze joke has been shown to hundreds of millions worldwide. Alright, so the next little part of this here, we're going to cross this thing, which is called the Burning Overpass, and then I have this sort of double looped section here. My goal is to shepherd my companion characters along the straight little bit between those 2 loops, but to do that, I have to carefully kite these mobs and prepare them ahead of time. We're going to just run right by Prava there as she's hanging out on the floor. She's having some floor time. We all need a little floor time from now and then. What I'm doing is, while my companion NPCs are struggling to keep up here, I am trying to pre-clear as much of the mobs up ahead as I can, kiting them back, and using this as opportunities to sort of prevent my allies from being guided toward slow outcomes. You can see the dialogue back here is progressing on a perfectly fine pace. I can go ahead and throw down some crowd control spells there, and hopefully now when we finish this, I'll be able to cross the next part of those 2 little lobes, and my companion characters will stay on the straight and narrow. I think I did a reasonably good job of prepping the first one, and the second one we're probably going to get caught right here, but I'm not entirely sure. Depending on exactly what the mob spawn locations are for the second half of that, it may be perfect. I may be able to get away with doing some pre-prep and getting away with it, or my companion characters may just be led away by their nose to the side of the map there. Alright, so now I'm going to kill 2 Balrogs, and then we're going to find out how good of a job I did at preparing the shepherding to keep my companions on the straight and narrow. Okay, so this first little bit, one thing that you'll note is that one of my main spells here, Hydra, attacks anything that's near it. Good so far. Darn it. So the first mob. Ooh, and they're getting kited away. Really, really deep there. Oh, this is bad. Alright, so this is not a particularly good performance of how that pre-prep is supposed to go. It's not the worst that it could possibly have been. I still saved about a minute compared to not doing the pre-prep, where they would want to walk that entire loop. And then now here, you can see, like I said, we're getting stuck on the portion that I thought we would get stuck on. I'm going to drop some Hydras in this mob, and I'm going to go try and clear off the stuff over here that'll stall us later while my Hydras do that work. So you can see that my HP is falling really, really rapidly. in that if I end up getting caught on anything here, it can be really hard. Leaving my companions to fight this Balrog so I can clear the path in front of them does save time, because it decreases the probability that they'll end up getting caught on something over here. So you'll notice that they're now ignoring this alleyway.
Watch out! Something's
And now we are done with shepherding them, and we're going to fight a cascade of mini-bosses headed by a big boss. This is Ninsa. She's in charge. So we're going to be able to continue fighting this here. There we go. So now we've gotten her down. Her first phase is done, and now she is going to run away. We're going to run away as well and meet up with our companions. I'll drop some Hydras, who should be able to clear most of these little vile ones, and we should be able to continue on from there.
I'm surprised you still remember the words to the bulwark. I'm the one who taught you that spell.
All right, and then now we're going to come over here, and this bridge is going to fall apart. We're going to try and say it again. Tani sup Kylakiptus. And the bridge is going to collapse. And then over here is going to spawn Karum, the Hound of Hatred. I'll put some Hydras right underneath where his feet will be. And then hopefully I can teleport and use that to lucky hit him right away. I did not get the lucky hit immediately. The hardest boss of the game is actually not the Lilith fight that we're going to do. Spoiler alert, we fight the titular character, the one that was used in all the advertising. Wow, no lucky hits there. That's not very good at all. The hardest boss fight in the game is actually Ashava. Ashava, once you complete the campaign, is a returning character as an in-game mechanic called the World Boss, something that you and all of your friends and everyone else in the world teams up together to fight. In the campaign, Lilith has very, very little XP, and compared to the post-game version of Lilith, she's actually quite comparatively weak. But instead, Ashava is the full World Boss strength. He has lowered HP, but does the same amount of damage, so any one of his attacks that I fail to dodge, all of which are reasonably straightforward to dodge, if that's what you're paying attention to, are really able to one-shot me. Consequently, I'm actually more defensively minded than offensively minded during this fight. If you were like really gamble stacking, hoping to get a record or go for a PB, if you needed a really good split here to keep a run on pace, you would, when you fight Ashava, be really, really willing to go ahead and take some risks on not dodging mechanics in the hopes that you get a lucky hit before he completes whatever his attack animation is. We're getting incredible lucky hit proc chance. You can see that Ninsa is coming down to fight us, and those last two times, a little passive effect that I have running got her before I could even do anything. Now I'm going to have this fight with Ashava. Ashava is going to fill this entire arena. Our camera is going to zoom out massively, and he's going to have big blades on his arms and sort of walk like an angry dog, and I will need to dodge him. He has poison effects that can kill me. Again, I need to use Flame Shield here defensively if he ever applies a damage over time effect. He's going to jump forward here, and when he does that, I'll need to dodge his first attack, and then we need to hope for lucky hits. Oop. And now we're just hoping to go ahead and get a lucky hit somewhere. Alright, so we're hoping. There we go, there's a big lucky hit. 18.8k on that one. That's why we switched to the two-handed weapon for that exact kind of time save right there. Alright, so I've prepared you guys a little bit. I know that we're trying to keep the event on schedule here, but I think I have enough time padding that I can show you the single greatest cinematic in Diablo franchise history, which is a laudy title. The franchise is known for having cinema-quality cinematics. Consequently, just to remind you guys, Inarius thinks that if he kills Lilith, he will get to go back to heaven. Lilith is angry at Inarius for killing their firstborn son, and she believes that if she takes over hell, she will become an all-powerful prime evil. With that in mind, please enjoy the Entry to Hell battle cinematic. This is quite loud, by the way.
Lilith was here. I see the blood petals.
Fair warning, this is graphic. You can close your eyes. I'll tell you when to open them again.
May we fight true in his holy name. Blessed be the light.
We are markedly more powerful than Inarius, by the way. Alright, and then, unless you're an exceptional lore nerd, the conversation that ensues will not be that exciting to you. Long story short, these two characters have all of the tension of ex-lovers, and Lilith kills Inarius after Inarius injures her, and I will continue the speedrun to keep us on pace.
What happened?
But just know all of the quality animation that I've been skipping in every single cutscene has been that good. Don't worry, folks. If you want to see a full lore playthrough, I can do that. We just won't do that while I am trying to keep an event on schedule.
She's already gone.
What now?
I have an idea. I will prepare the sightless eye.
The eye? What do you
Bear in mind, these are the two greatest mages in all of the world, and in the cutscene that I just skipped, one of them gets one-tapped by a literal wall. So you know, GG, environment physics. So now we're going to enter into a series of cutscenes that are something of an overture for the previous boss fights. We fought Astaroth. I almost said Astarion. I've been playing Baldur's Gate all week. We fight Astaroth. We fight Lilith's Lament. We see Donan experiences the death of his son, and we see all of that again here. Fair warning, a couple of these cutscenes have white interspliced frames there, so you will get flashbanged a couple of times.
Foolish of you to use the eye again.
So we've used an artifact called the Sightless Eye, which is something of a seer stone. And
Where am I?
Lilith has caught us trying to take a look at where exactly she is and figure out what her machinations are within the deeper portions of hell we haven't yet reached. And so she is going to threaten to keep us here forever and try and convince us to ally with her instead of fighting against her.
You could be Sanctuary's greatest.
Jason DM, that cutscene also almost made me as angry as D3. Sorry, excuse for killing Deckard Cain. Yeah, he does get one-tapped by a wall zombie. I do agree, it is ridiculous. He is one of the two greatest living Herodric mages. Somehow, he gets literally, like, we walk through all of these things. I kill Ashava, a monster that is literally so large they need to pan out the camera. And this guy dies to an actual, like, wall.
Ever since you drank my blood, I have been a part of you. I always will be. I carry.
So we're going to continue through here, and again, we're going to see a redux of all of the previous bosses here. So this is the priest in the very first town where we were originally abducted and fed blood petals that gave us our connection to Lilith. And then now as we continue here, we're going to clear things up, kill some wolves here.
You stray from it at every opportunity.
devil's eyes.
The Haradrim know the truth.
All right. So then now, as we pass through here, you'll see a bunch of these little vignettes as we run through, and we're fighting bosses that have all exactly the same mechanics as before, but 2 at a time. So first we're going to see Erida and Elias together up here. But first we have a couple of cutscenes to do. And then after that we will see a pairing of, I believe it's Brol and Genbar. And then after that, we have a fight with Astaroth, and then we're on to the final boss.
Elias thought I was the one to save Sanctuary. But he was wrong. A human must lead the flock of humans.
Savior.
Alright, so then now we have to fight a bunch of little ghouls, kill some Hellbinders, and then Mephisto is going to rebel against his daughter and help us out of here.
I will keep you
He holds out hope that we will help him. After the events of Diablo 3, Mephisto, who is immortal and cannot truly die, has been released from a soul stone, and his essence is reforming. So when we go towards the Cathedral of Hatred, we will eventually find him in the form of a big orb of pure hatred essence, and we will have the choice to imprison either him or Lilith in the soul stone that we've prepped.
This is where Mephisto found me.
Now we go through a long S-shaped dungeon here, where you will see why exactly Teleport is such a useful spell and why Sorcerer is the class that I'm running for you all. The reason, of course, being that we can cut off all the corners in this dungeon. Wow, I am getting really horrible lucky hit RNG there. There we go, finally got one.
What did my father
And as we continue running through here, there are more S-shaped curves that I can cut off. Unfortunately, the game does railroad me over here, so I can't quite cut off as much of a corner as I would like. And now we fight Erida and Elias. Just fishing for lucky hits. There we go. Like I said, you can see the boss has HP and then suddenly doesn't. We go from hitting for 30 to hitting for 12.9 thousand.
You've thrown your life away for nothing.
All right, and then this time we're going to see Astaroth again. In the meantime, we're saying nothing is sealed, and we're, you know,
Nothing is sealed.
angrily talking back to Lilith as she tries to convince us that she's unstoppable or that we should ally with her. She's really getting desperate, and you can read that. We got a 1-tap on Astaroth. That's actually crazy. That means that we got a full proc of lucky hit and a crit, or else we couldn't possibly have had enough damage to do that. Flashbang warning in 1 second. Close your eyes.
Take it.
Okay, and if you wanted to avoid being flashbanged, you can reopen. All right, and then here is Nerel. She is weeping over the death of Donan. Of course, the 2 great mages sworn to the ancient magic order to protect humanity from hell are, of course, going to leave the greatest problem of the age to us, a sorcerer wearing no armor that they met 1 day ago, and a 12-year-old. Mephisto shows up here. He offers us direct access instead of trying to cross the wall of flame guarding his inner sanctum directly. This itself is the Cathedral of Hatred, and we're going to go have a boss fight. What happens in the cutscene before we have this boss fight is that for some reason, the 2 great mages abdicate their responsibility to confront the prime evils. And then we show up here with Nerel, our teenage companion, and then we abdicate the choice to her. Surely leaving the decision-making about the handling of the greatest evils in all of the world, the literal primordial manifestation of hatred, the source of all conflict itself, to the decision-making of a 12-year-old girl who lost her mother about 2.5 hours ago is a great idea. This is Mephisto. He's chillin'. He's reforming. She ends up deciding to use the Soul Stone on him and not on Lilith, which leaves us to have to fight Lilith. Fortunately, as you can see, Lilith not very strong. We're able to do 80% of her HP with that first lucky hit, and then now I just need to clear up this mob and we'll be good to go. So long as we dodge her little downwind attacks there, we should be good. Okay, and that's phase 1 of Lilith. Alright, and then we're going to go ahead and have phase 2 of the Lilith fight. She's going to cut off sections of the stage, and I need to be able to stand on the portion that she's breaking and then jump back to the section that's stable. The section that's stable is poisonous while she's cutting off the next section of the stage. I can actually get her to 0 HP very, very quickly, and then she goes up here to cut off this section of the stage. So I stand on the part that's breaking for a little bit, and then I jump back over, and I'll be doing this a couple of times, and then Lilith will be dead. We'll have about 2.5 minutes of epilogue to play, and then the run will be over. Okay. And that's Lilith. Okay, and then she's going to give us the worst unique item in the game, Mother's Embrace. Earlier on, someone in chat asked me to explain the t-shirt. In short, items in Diablo come in rarities. The rarest one is called Mythic. If you are anywhere in the world that is not one of 2 specific endgame bosses, the chances of a mythic item occurring are literally 1 in a billion. Not only that, mythic items and other items of similar qualities can have greater affixes, which is a 1 in 10 chance for each item modifier to have a 50% bonus on top of its usual value. So the rarest, most powerful possible item would be written in purple text, the way that this is orange and this is orange and this is blue. It would be purple, and it would have 4 greater affixes. The chances of such an item occurring in the overworld are 1 in 100 trillion. So theoretically, this t-shirt is the most powerful item in the game.
Yes. Will this never end?
Yusuf, what do you want?
Step aside. I'm here for the Haradrim.
Can it wait? I'm off to bury a friend.
Now, I should say, by the way, the 1 in 100 trillion number is only if you're not farming for this item specifically. There are places where it's dramatically more common than that. Alright, so now we have talked to Lorath, and he has said that he is going to go and take care of Donan's affairs and bury him at his family home in Skosglin. And we have to go and see where Neyrelle went with the soul stone containing the prime evil Mephisto. Consequently, it's kind of important that she's missing. One of the 3 most important evils in the entire world is in the hands of a 12-year-old right now, and that's not very good. So we're going to go check where we think she might be, which is in the library of the Haradrim Mage Order, the Haradrim Vault. We're going to come in here and find a letter written in an ancient Haradrim code that she learned. We can't interpret it, but it's clearly from Neyrelle. It's in her handwriting. She's the only other person who would know where this is. And time will be when I click on Lorath's head here, and the first frame of the cutscene plays. So you've got about 15 seconds.
Why do I only hear one set of footsteps?
And 3, 2, 1, time. So, by the way, if you can, production, you should cut game audio like right now. It's incredibly loud. So thank you everybody for watching. The game does end on a cliffhanger. Neyrelle is missing. That is somewhat resolved in the expansion that came out about a month ago. Speedrun strats for that expansion to the campaign. You should cut visual to this. This is so graphic. This is the intro to the expansion. Again, cinema quality cutscenes, but definitely not super comfortable. Diablo 4 is a wonderful game for speedrunning. The in-game mechanic systems are dramatically more complicated and rich than I can possibly explain during the 3-hour speedrun. but there are a lot of other categories involving endgame systems as well as things outside of the campaign at low levels. If you're interested in getting involved in Diablo 4 speedrunning, I have plenty of recommendations for easy categories for people to try, including people who are not yet familiar with Diablo as a franchise. And the game itself is fundamentally about min-maxing your build and everything else, so it's very much a speedrun-oriented game. But in the meantime, I'm going to hand myself back over to production, and hopefully we can avoid the more graphic portions of this cutscene, because I am warning you, this is seriously a very, very gross thing. So thank you guys for having me here at Pace. I look forward to watching the rest of the runs today. Thank you all. Bye-bye.